Call this meeting to order at 6:01 on March 31st, 2021. We'll start with roll call. Please say yes or present or here. Atagarla. Idvate. Anderson. Bender. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Gonzalez. Hayes. Hurley. Klaptauskas. Lewis. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchi. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastro. We have quorum. Next, we'll do a Pledge of Allegiance led by Speaker Ludwig. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll move on to the program for the evening. Is there a program, Speaker Ludwig?
Yes, I forgot to throw it on there, but there's a diversity, equity, and inclusion program with the chief officers, or from the chief officers with President Fritz.
Okay. And does Senator Mass have that presentation shared with him?
He should.
Great. Thank you, Zach. Is this on? Okay. So this presentation tonight is coming from the chief officers. So that would be myself, Vice President Schrader, Chief of Staff Rolling, Speaker Ludwig, Vice Speaker Gonzalez, Finance Director Class. And we've kind of worked on this in discussions with Cabinet, and then Senate was able to have a working meeting, and senators were able to provide feedback. So this is not something formal that has been voted on, but these are recommendations, ideas, initiatives, and just some general brainstorming that the next executive and Senate branches could use in the areas of diversity, inclusion, and equity transitions. And so these are things that can be implemented in the executive branch, in the legislative branch through bills, informally, and just kind of general practices for the next year. So we're just going to go through those ideas quickly. So the first one there is keep diversity and inclusion at the forefront during transitions. So transition documents should include diversity, inclusion, and equity context to make sure this information is easily accessible and one of the first contact senators, cabinet members, and judicial branch members have. So for example, in every college, there is a diversity, equity, and inclusion liaison. So making sure that senators connect with that individual, making sure that various cabinet members in whatever departments they're working with the most connect with the DEI officer within that department, because most do have an individual there or someone that kind of oversees a department. Next is institute guidelines for posts on official Iowa State student government pages, just a framework to make sure that we understand who posts are coming from, and that they reflect representations for all students. And then finally, on this slide, holding regular town hall meetings. So we should strive to continue to make sure that every student voice is heard across our campus, in addition to, the outreach that people do and office hours, making sure that town hall meetings where people can come in and, voice whatever concerns and opinions and thoughts that they have should be held in order to allow students to have their voices heard. So that could be something that was implemented once a semester or, kind of on a case-by-case basis for whoever, what people see fit there. Next would be to offer more opportunities to collaborate with clubs and organizations across campus. So this could include joint working meetings, the ability to present to Senate as a program, just like I'm doing right now, and other opportunities for students to regularly be able to work collaboratively with student government to improve campus. Next would be engage in discussions on diversity and inclusion regularly by enhancing our programs. So that would mean different departments or individuals could come in and speak during this time just before student government so that, members of student government can hear it, as well as any members of the community decide to join. And review the language used in student government, so making sure that it's inclusive, gender neutral, and it's accessible to people inside and outside of the student body. And the website signage and social media postings can be translated into different languages. That's something that we can look into for our website to make sure that it's easily accessible to people that speak all languages. Next is to require that a member of diversity and inclusion sits on finance committee. This member would be responsible for reaching out to multicultural groups across campus to be a resource for funding information and to help provide clubs and organizations across campus the resources they need. One of the really cool things that we fund is multicultural food, and so having really cool nights that people are allowed to or people are able to come and try the food and learn about different cultures is a really cool thing. So making sure that all clubs know about opportunities like that. And then additionally promoting multicultural clubs across our campus by working with the student government PR team by promoting those and publicizing events and meetings and all that. And continued diversity, equity, inclusion education for all student government. And that is a job that the director of diversity inclusion would be maybe sending out monthly topics that people could discuss with a partner or discuss among their respective branches. And then increase opportunities for student government outreach. An option could be for senators to forego their weekly office hour in a non-COVID year. Senators are required to do 1 office hour a week in the office, but maybe instead of doing that, going out to table or to attend club meetings to better reach out to all of our constituents. Because there are a lot of different clubs on campus, and making sure that they're all heard is something that we should definitely strive to do. And then ensure that students know their student government representative. I think a lot of times we really focus on events to meet the candidates or to get to know who's running for office. But then once that happens, we don't as much focus on who the candidates actually are and making sure that students are able to know them and reach out to them and hear what they have to say. So making sure that people are aware of who's representing them and having their contact information easily accessible, and maybe even having an open house sort of event where people could come and meet them and make sure that they know who they're representing. And that's the end of the PowerPoint.
All right. Thank you, President Fritz, for the program. So we'll move on to open forum. Open forum is a time for discussion or issues relevant to students. If you're a student wishing to address open forum, please approach the lectern, state your name and the college of your primary major. And like we've done the last couple weeks, if there's a line, we could set it up and socially distance out by the wall there. That would be great. Thank you.
Behold the beauty my eyes cannot see. I am blinded by the abundance of monotony and the forgotten elegance lost to time as we are all forced towards conformity. You are the same as me, an atomistic agent incapable of the slightest microscopic change, as your strings are pulled by the hegemony of an invisible social planner. I cannot think. I cannot speak. I look at you, and where I should find some distinction, some small detail that discerns you from me, some tiny trait that should make me human, I find nothing. Do I have your attention? You get up behind this podium, in front of the cameras, and you howl about oppression and victimhood. You think that by taking one glance at a human being, you can classify them as an oppressor or a victim. And that's the end of the story. If you don't believe me, please consider if you're already prepared to retort the words I am currently saying and the words I have yet to say based on my race, gender, or sexuality. Last week, Breonna Diaz stood behind this podium and lamented the racial makeup of the Iowa State student body to the student government, who does not, in fact, control admissions. Poorly aimed criticism aside, she went on to later in the week post similar objections to her public Instagram account, in response to which my friend and fellow Yaffer, Devasi Jeev Padavath, left a comment in disagreement. He said that he, as a person of color, has had a very positive experience at Iowa State, and that the community was actually very welcoming to him. Diaz's response was to chastise him for invalidating the experiences of the hundreds of people of color she claims to represent. That was when I responded by saying that Diaz was actually invalidating Padavath's experience by being so dismissive. I went on to state that I had also had a very positive experience with Iowa State, but that, and I quote, "I can't speak for other people just because they're in the same community as me. Nor would it be right for me to claim that I speak on their behalf, especially without their permission." Diaz did not take too kindly to this. She wanted to explain that her post was only about her and her friends' experiences, even though she did not make that clear in the post itself, and that I should leave her and her friends alone so that they could process their feelings. The irony that she was saying this on her public Instagram account was lost on her. Diaz knew that she had gone too far when she told me that I was mansplaining, a derogatory term used by leftists when they don't like what a man is saying. If you don't think the word mansplaining is derogatory, please consider what your response would have been if I had told her to woman understand. Diaz knew she had gone too far because she deleted all of the comments Padavath and I had made and then blocked us from her public Instagram account. Word to the wise, the cover-up is always worse than the crime. Diaz, who had just 2 days earlier called for solidarity from this very podium, had no qualms about insulting members of marginalized communities when they politely disagreed with the agenda she was attempting to push, and cast them from a public space and into the darkness, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. Here's the gist. Anyone who claims to speak on behalf of communities who have not consented to such representation, and who then respond to polite dissent with insults, silencing, and banishment from a public space, are either helplessly foolish about their abilities to lead, or concealing an intent so malicious that we should all shudder at the thought of them gaining any sort of power. If you know how to solve the university's problems and all you need is complete compliance from everyone on campus, you are not a liberator. You are not a public figure. You are not a unifying figure. You are a tyrant with the imprudent notion that your dictatorship will usher in utopia. However, you are blithely unaware that you are exactly the type of person who should never wield power, because if you do, you will certainly steer society towards hell, one resentful and destructive inch at a time. Thank you.
All right. As a reminder to students, please state your name and the major of your primary, or college of your primary major when you approach the podium. Thank you.
Hello. To all those who don't know me, my name is Thomas King, and I'm a freshman here at ISU. I'm pursuing a biology major in the College of Liberal Arts and Science. Now, I'm not here to put on a show or to make ridiculous and inaccurate claims about student government. However, I strongly encourage you all to listen and at the very least hear what I have to say. I have recently taken an interest in government, whether it be federal, state, or student. And after some thought and consideration, I have found one huge similarity between them all. They're a joke. For the past couple of weeks, I've tuned into live streams and have not only seen terrible and stupid claims, but just absolute absurdity. And I can't help but feel some urge to say my piece. From faking emotions at this very podium to widely inappropriate claims about token students. I not only feel sad for the people who had to listen to this, but sick to my stomach as well. Government is supposed to be a place where people can bring real, important issues and do their best to change and bring awareness to them. Another thing that should go without saying is treating others with respect. Again, I am sick to my stomach to hear some of the obnoxious, disgusting claims and language used by the people here at this very podium. We are all humans. We all matter. And we are all passionate about certain beliefs and values. Take some time and look past these for a second and realize that everyone here is a person. And to make false and frankly terrible accusations is not only wrong, but very disappointing. I hope next year people not only start to treat others with respect, with the respect they deserve, but to take student government seriously. And because I'm a freshman, I will do my best in my part to work and make student government a better and more productive organization. To close, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who encouraged me to speak my mind, and everyone involved with YAF, especially Seth Pelch and Laura Emery, whom have not only been great role models, but even better people. This organization not only has been very kind and welcoming to me, and I am very, very excited to continue to work with them in the future. Thank you.
What up, council? I'm just a student here at Iowa State with an opinion, and I've always thought that someone's opinion matters more than their skin color, more than their name, more than where they came from, and more than the color of their skin. Whatever happened to the days of tailgating at an Iowa State football game, the feeling of pride and joy as we watched our team barely choke away the Cy-Hawk game and come short of an overall winning season? Pure bliss. But now we're all forced to be under ridiculous rules and guidelines and wear masks on campus, are told not to interact with our friends, and when we all know these things come off as soon as we're out of the doors of the classroom. I can appreciate everyone's passion when they come up here and speak to the group, and during my talk, I hope that we can find some common ground and a common goal in wanting to better this campus. Like Tommy said, I've become more involved in campus politics recently, and I've seen some pretty absurd things occur in the past few months. There are definitely a lot of real issues at hand, but I haven't seen anything accomplished. I'm pretty disappointed in both student government and the student body. I would actually love to talk about a lot of these issues that have been brought up at both the last few meetings because they hold a lot of importance. But there's too much to go over, so I want to briefly touch on a few points to get people thinking and back on track of common good. I do not personally know many of the people in this room, so I apologize if I butcher some names. I've only spoken to some of these students in here a few times. I want to start with Mr. Jacob Schrader. A few meetings ago, you were told that your silence hurt communities at Iowa State because you were protecting your white feelings and white guilt. When did being silent become the new call to violence? You were told you made this campus an unsafe environment and did not condemn racism. Mr. Schrader, do you condemn racism?
Yes.
Sounds good to me. I believe an apology is needed towards you, and I'm sorry this happened to you. I will always call out when I see someone judge another person based on the color of their skin. Next, Mr. Daniel Pfeiffer. He was attacked without warrant. Mr. Pfeiffer stood up to acknowledge hypocrisy shown during the meetings and the breaking of meeting rules due to uncivil discourse. We have seen this hypocrisy again and again, being that students have been reduced to the color of their skin, and the only time I've seen this on campus has been during the student government meetings. From the same people speaking out against racism. A few weeks ago, we saw Pfeiffer asked a question, reduced to the color of his skin, and when he questioned back on that, he was reduced to the color of his skin again. This is outrageous, given that students have been coming up here to speak on their experiences with racism, and we see it happen right in front of our eyes. What a slap in the face to students speaking out about their experiences with racism. I cannot believe we actually witnessed this happen, and I was in shock. We have seen Pfeiffer attacked again later meetings and be compared to horrible people online, when there are obviously larger issues at hand, such as the aforementioned experiences of other students. You cannot come up here and condemn people speaking over other students when you are doing so yourself. You cannot come up here and say that your opinion matters when you are discounting certain other opinions you disagree with. I, for one, want to hear all opinions and learn as much as possible on both sides of issues. What I don't want to see is people doing the opposite of what they want in return. This has been wildly outrageous. What is student government here for? What's getting accomplished? I thought this was for practicing politics and getting ready for the real world. How do we expect to do better than politicians in office when we handle ourselves this way in college? I also do not know the current president, but I've witnessed attacks on something as simple as her writing down notes of the thoughts in her head so she could speak better on the many topics at hand. I don't want to listen to people using ad hominem attacks. I want to hear students with diverse experiences voice them out and lay out what they want accomplished. I want to hear a game plan from other students, not to see people getting personally attacked. Active listening, are you telling me that you have never taken notes in class to remember information? To those that have been on the receiving end of any attack, whether it's over your race, the way you look, the way you think, to those receiving any death threats for this, I'm sorry this happened to you. Because I said I want to see a game plan from the students, I will add more onto what I previously stated I wanted to hear. I want the unwarranted attacks of other students to stop. I want to see positive actions accomplished that better the lives of every student on campus. Last meeting, we saw Mr. Jack Bender be called a token black senator. I was, again, in absolute shock to witness this happen. People make mistakes, and the great thing about making mistakes is that we can learn from them and apologize for our previous actions. Mr. Bender, I'm sorry this happened to you. I was advised to not approach the stand due to the nature of what I was speaking on tonight. I was threatened by a senator in this room. They came up to me and said I would be doxxed online. I believe I've taken a neutral stance that solely calls for the end of verbal attacks. I did not take a side. I just realized what we need to get people thinking more before they speak. We cannot be hypocrites and not practice what we preach. Every person in the world can do better on this. My friend Jake Freer, as well as other students that shared their experiences up here, especially a young girl a few meetings ago, I believe she said she was Chinese and had her peers pull their eyes back at her, and that was terrible. She said she was not good at public speaking. You did a great job, by the way. I'm not a public speaker. You helped me realize something I've known for a long time. If you are not going to stand up for something you believe in, then what's the point of having legs? If you have an experience to share, an idea for the student government that will help us all move forward together, then do so. But let's stay true to our own words and be kind for kindness in return. The golden rule. I do not want to see what has happened this semester happen in the future, especially when I know people in this room next semester. Julia Campbell and Megan Decker are two of the most passionate and genuine girls I've gotten to know. I've known Megan for about 10 years and Julia for 1. They do not deserve to be treated like the members of the student government have been treated this semester. Jack, Daniel, Morgan, Jacob. And we will be up here to defend the good people that have been attacked without warrant every single time that we can. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for all the other students coming up here to share their experiences.
Hello, my name is Jacob Freer, and ever since I was little, I was always taught the golden rule, and that's to treat others the way you want to be treated. Now, if you want people to listen to what you have to say, you have to reciprocate the same respect. If you want people to judge you by the color of your skin, be a model and don't dehumanize people because of the color of their skin. We have the ability to make a real change and find common ground, but we have to have a common respect for each other and stop the name-calling and rudeness. I have a quote from a great inspiration of mine, Martin Luther King. He said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Now, to end, I just want to give all of you a challenge here, and anyone present who believes that student government is a representation of systemic racism, to stay through the entirety of the Senate meeting, to be able to better show how student government is directly putting people of color at a disadvantage. Thank you.
My name is Summerlee Reiner. I'm a member of Sigma Lambda Gamma, and more importantly, I'm a student here at Iowa State. I'm going to be earning my degree in sociology and women and gender studies. I want to give a trigger warning because I will be discussing and quoting things from the College Republican Twitter that are harmful to others. Before I speak my truth, I want to bring awareness to Breasia Terrell. Breasia is a 10-year-old black girl who went missing 264 days ago from Davenport, Iowa. A few hours ago, her remains were found 10 miles away from Davenport. I'm holding back the pain of her disappearance. Black and brown missing youth are never talked about or given the publicity they deserve, especially in Iowa. At first, I never wanted to speak up about my experience with racism. In fact, I've actually lost the track of the number of racist acts that have occurred to me. Since my first day, I have been walking around campus uncomfortable and consistently looking over my shoulder. I have seen folks who have participated in hateful acts or speech looking at me knowing I was not like them in class. I have had tenured professors be actively racist, yet they are still employed. I have seen racist chalk as I've walked into class saying, directed at Latinx students saying, build the wall. I have seen posters I have seen posters around campus saying 13 does 50 or go back home to Africa. I have seen my friends who had professors that would never pronounce their name right, but instead give them Americanized names because their names are too hard to pronounce. I have been in a classroom setting where a message was airdropped containing derogatory terms. I have been on the sideway where white folks clutched their bags harder because I was around. I have my peers call me aggressive and validate my feelings and believe I am not intelligent because of the color of my skin. When COVID-19 had hit during that semester, our APDI students, specifically international students, struggled because of their skin tone. I've seen Indigenous students give a light acknowledgement and be bombarded with death threats. In response to that, President Wondersteed contacted ISUPD as if they were the saints of police. I have seen our university president disregard the concerns of students of color and cater to white students. Keep in mind that these are circumstances I have been told or personally experienced. There are more voices who have experienced what I have discussed or worse than that. Recently, there were 2 events that have occurred over these weeks. Student government had a senator resign due to the disrespect to student government senators and out of the frustration of his organization is run. That senator will not be returning for the remainder of their time. While in the same space, Morgan and Jacob had disrespected and invalidated a woman of color faculty member. She spoke about the social hierarchy that she faces as a woman of color, and you invalidated her because you are not able to identify what a social hierarchy is. Morgan and Jacob, you released a statement that you were specifically told not to release, putting a woman of color in danger because of white man's ego and fragility. Morgan, you were asked to identify how this statement was racist. Senator Zastro asked you this question, you can simply not answer and give such an in-person and power response. At this point, you disappointed me and even CPC. Where is the same response when senators saying right in front of me have been associated with hate speech? Where is your response to condemn racism or bigotry on this campus? Since white man's ego was hurt, it must have not been something to comment on. Students should not have to go to you for you to understand what to do. Students and myself personally will never feel comfortable telling you how we feel, and that goes for the elected vice president and president as well. I am talking about Ryan Hurley and his connections to campus, how he makes senators right in front of him feel so uncomfortable that they have to fear for their safety and bring in ISUPD. And this time, I would love to read some of the tweets that the College of Republicans have said. Also, they blocked me on Twitter, however, I have this screenshotted. On January 6th, a picture was posted saying, we are in DC and Des Moines fighting for America. On January 7th, ultrasounds always show either boy or girl, none of the other genders, very interesting. On March 3rd, a post was shared saying, CBS News, Alabama Senate votes to make hormone therapy surgery for trans youth a felony. While the College of Republicans, quote, retreated, please do this in Iowa. On January 1st, if you either have pronouns in your bio, assume you're a social reject or mentally ill. On September 11th, everyone at Iowa State needs to realize that transgenderism is a mental illness. Come back to God. On September 20th, please come to Ames. So many illegals that must be deported. On October 7th, everyone, you must arm up and expect these people to attempt to destroy your lives with the least one to revenge on us. These are just a few of the tweets that were made by the College of Republicans, which are associated with Ryan Hurley and now elected member within the Senate again. Throughout my time, we will be calling out folks by name. Daniel P. Where's he at? He's over there.
Ryan, can you please shut your phone off? Okay, thank you.
Daniel, I think you're over there, right? Daniel, believe that the statement was okay. You were guided by your perception of race. However, we are telling you it was an unnecessary statement to make over a woman of color stating her personal experience within racism and social hierarchy. You called Brianna disrespectful because of the way she reports Morgan. However, if you could understand the racism to the depths that we do, you would understand why we are so annoyed and tired. You would see that there is so much anger behind this so-called disrespect, that we are constantly disrespected by this university. Last week, I gave my time and space for towards the APDI folks in their mourning. Not only that, but in Boulder, there was a shooting. 2A had decided to send out an email about 3D printing and the connection to guns. It is traumatizing for potentially everyone, but especially me, because the people doing this so-called activity are the ones who will hate me. Not only that, but I have folks around me lose their life to gun violence too. My safety is a big concern. I am not safe on this campus with my intersecting identities. In the same breath, LAS Senator Charles Ding endorsed the 2A event as well. As a senator, you're supposed to represent LAS. You do not represent me. Also, I love the microaggression in the conversation. When I post your speech to Instagram, I'll make sure to tag you so you can perfect my grammar. As a senator, this is for all the senators and people in power. You're supposed to represent us. This means taking the extra mile to become socially aware. 2 weeks ago, I was disrespected, invalidated, and my experience were erased by Charles K. and Daniel P. So Charles, Daniel. While speaking about my experience, I questioned Charles what is funny. He laughed in my face. In anger, I created a Facebook post tagging was then president and was then vice president of the student body. I went to check on it because someone had shared my post. You untagged yourself, Morgan. As a white woman, you were uncomfortable with what you were tagged in, which was real racism. You used your privilege to the fullest to back out. My peers keep telling you that only for a moment you were uncomfortable. This experience will be something I remember forever. You were uncomfortable for 2 hours. I'm uncomfortable for 20 years. My mom is probably watching this tonight and will be calling me after to make sure I am home safe and all right. To be transparent, I'm not all right. Social injustice on this campus has been something detrimental to my mental health, my friendships, my siblinghood in SLG, my career, my education. I'm here to learn and get an education, not be the teacher. As Brianna stated, retaliation comes to speaking up, and that's what makes you all uncomfortable. Whether it's that folks in your community or within yourself personally. I'm tired of repeating myself, but I will continue to take up space every week whenever here by myself or supported by others. I'm here to make you uncomfortable. We are not going anywhere, and we will continue to speak in times as such until lasting change is finally taken seriously at this institution. I encourage folks who want to speak to speak. It's important to take up space and force people in power, whenever that's student government, Wendy Winterstein of the Board of Regents, to listen to the issues that are happening with our communities. When talking about your personal experiences, I know it may seem like these folks aren't listening. However, what you may say might impact someone more than you can ever know. It is not our job to educate them. This does not fall on the BIPOC community. This falls on our real allies. To the social media posters, I see you and your performativity. This part of this message is whenever you are a person of color or white. I see your performativity. I see you posting anti-racism on your social media. However, racism is not solved by posting Instagram stories or long Facebook posts. You need to do more before you give yourself the title of ally, which is something you not deem yourself either. As always, to my marginalized folks, especially in student government, thank you for listening and watching. I am grateful for each of all of you and making worthwhile my time of tears and stress. To my future cyclones, who I wish will not be in this situation in 10 years, I am doing this so it's easier on you later. You all care for, love, validate, and kind, and also respect is something that is given. You gotta earn that. So we're not gonna respect you until you start respecting us. And this is all off the notes. How much time do I have left?
2 minutes, 15 seconds.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so y'all like to come up here. Y'all were talking a whole bunch of mess on Instagram. I seen it. I was commenting too, by the way. So if you're gonna start attacking Brianna, you better start attacking me too. Summerlee Reiner, Lily Ree, LELERHII, Instagram and Twitter. Okay? If y'all really want to start doing that, y'all come up here on some mess. That's not okay. That's fucked up. Y'all sit here saying how we're invalidating. Oh, yeah, both of y'all back there. Go ahead. Pull out your phone and write some more. You're not going to silence me, and you never will. I will be back here next week, the week after that. I don't care how fucking tired I am. I'll be back. Go ahead and talk your shit. Go ahead. I want you to. Y'all are hella disrespectful. Y'all invalidate people. The people like clapping. Y'all 3 motherfuckers there too. You probably too. Is something funny? You're always laughing. It's something really funny. If you got some shit to say, you can definitely say it to me afterwards. Not you, the guy behind you, but probably you as well. Anyway, so I'm gonna, excuse me? Okay, I'm just playing. I'm gonna let my peers speak now because y'all are really hella disrespectful. This is totally off the script and I feel so bad because I was trying to keep my composure, but I can't keep my composure no more when you have people literally sitting in these Senate seats who do not feel comfortable. I cannot keep doing this. They cannot keep doing this. I'm so sorry for y'all once again. I care about you. I know some of them are not in the room right now, but I care about you. I hope you're watching. So thank you so much and have a great night.
Get off your laptop, Charles. Get off your laptop. So first, I want to thank Brianna, or Brianna hasn't spoken yet, but I want to thank her and somebody for speaking. Your strength and courage inspire and create hope and change despite the systems of oppression that you face. Secondly, I want to apologize for what I said. Not to you white people in here, but to the people of color that I have hurt with what I said. I want to apologize for my intent and my impact. My intent was to shed light on the underrepresentation of students of color on student government, but my words instead invalidated their experiences by implying that they're only here because of their token person of color. My words invalidated the work that those students of color put in to create spaces at a table where they are not welcome, a table where they have to try harder to have their voices be heard. Specifically, I want to apologize to Jack Benner for putting you on the spot like that. I made a mistake, and I promise to be more careful about my words to make sure they don't invalidate anyone's experiences and to make sure they line up with my intent. All right, next, I want to talk about what voices in student government are heard and represented and why we have this constant back and forth conversation. It all boils down to a couple things: white fragility, white entitlement, white guilt, and white male egos. The whole incident that sparked outrage was a direct result of these four things. Morgan and Jacob chose to empathize with white entitlement, guilt, and feelings, and they tried to pull the reverse racism card when white privilege was being called out. Morgan, you said that some students found the tweets and brought them up and they had concerns with you, but you never told us who these students were, and not that that really mattered, but I found out. I knew you were prioritizing white feelings and white guilt, but what I didn't know where that was coming from. Those students who voiced their concern are from the Young Americans for Freedom group here at Iowa State. I don't know if everyone knew this, but many of the officers here are here as senators as well. Charles is the president, Jacob Freire is the treasurer, and Daniel Pfeiffer is the secretary. And I want to clarify that there is nothing wrong with them holding these two roles, but the issue here is when white people get to have their voices heard and people of color and women are silenced. How come YF can get full support from the president and vice president, but Josh can't get any support for his social media platform? Or how come Mariana, Eliana, Lauren, and Anna get their ideas shot down for Women's Week? You choose to empathize with white feelings, white entitlement, and white guilt. It's evident that you want to silence the people of color, and that's what makes you white supremacists. Because people like you are why white supremacy, racism, and sexism are such a huge issue on student government. Next, I want to address you, Charles. Last week, you rudely interrupted me with your call to order. And weeks before that, you rudely interrupted many other people. And if you try to do that again here today, I will speak over you until I'm done. And you can try to speak over me, but my voice is more powerful, but yours is pathetic. Don't expect me to be nice to you after you disrespected me and the people I care about. And Charles, you were very adamant about calling out Dr. Mukherjee's tweets on white privilege. You even tweeted saying, if you replace black with white, you would get the same sentiment as the 1950s. And Charles, you also voted to limit us to 2 5-minute speaking privileges, and also you voted yes to limit that to even just 1 5-minute speaking privilege. And the only thing you voted no for was to give us a 10-minute speaking privilege. And you're also the only one that's tried to silence us with your call to order, with some whack excuse to limit our speech. I see right through you, Charles. I know that you feel powerless in these situations. But that's not what makes you pathetic. What makes you pathetic is that you try to silence us to achieve some level of dominance. What makes you pathetic is how you choose to amplify your white feelings with your role as the president of YAF, the student government. What makes you pathetic is how you abuse your power as senator to silence our speech. The root of these issues is people like you who have a sense of white entitlement. You feel entitled to your power and privilege, so when you don't get it, you throw a fit like a child. So when you don't get that power and privilege, you assert your dominance in any way. You lash out. You whine to Morgan and Jacob. You rudely interrupt me for calling for order. People like you will do anything to feel powerful. When people point out that privilege that you have, you feel oppressed because you benefit from our oppression, but you are too cowardly to admit that. So you'd rather do anything to try and dominate over us to feed your fragile white male ego. Notice I said try because you will never dominate over us. White guys like you turn towards racism, misogyny, and violence to assert your dominance. And even one of these senators here is promoting 3D printed guns. And I have one more message for you, Charles. One more message for all those white supremacists, racists, misogynists, homophobes, transphobes like you, Daniel and Ryan. Fuck you.
Please don't move the podium.
Sorry, what was-
Thank you. Okay, maybe. I'm too tall. Okay, got it, I think. Okay. So, hello, my name is Brianna Diaz. I've been mentioned a few times. If you guys want my autograph after this, let me know. Okay, so, hello, my name is Brianna Diaz, and I'm a member of Sigma Lambda Gamma National Sorority Incorporated. And I'm the current vice president of I'm the current vice president of community outreach for the Multicultural Greek Council. If you have been following along and supporting my activity within the Iowa State campus, thank you. To begin with, I would like to share with all of you more about myself. Again, my name is Brianna Diaz. I'm a first-generation college student majoring in child, adult, and family services. I am Mexican American, and I'm the proud daughter of an immigrant. Y si mi padre está viendo esto, te quiero mucho, papá. Although I stand here in front of all of you with confidence and assertiveness, I am broken on the inside. I have dealt with things within my 22 years of life that I would never want anyone else to ever go through. For those of you who have heard me present for HCFS 249, you know that I have a vast amount of experience with ACEs. If you don't know what that means, it means adverse childhood experiences. So, before I go on, I would like to give a trigger warning because some of the things that I will address could definitely upset certain people. To begin with, I've had to live a majority of my life without my birth father because he was deported when I was a baby. I have had to see my mom struggle in the past with drug addiction. I have seen my mother be physically and mentally abused by past boyfriends. Together, my mother and I have faced homelessness on multiple occasions. In fact, I have my own experience with childhood sexual assault from when I was a small child. When I was in high school, I found myself in a physically and mentally abusive relationship for 4 years. It got so bad that I showed up to school one day with 2 black, swollen eyes, a busted lip, broken fingers, and bruises all over my body. If I start crying, that's, whatever. Then a few weeks after that, I lost my biggest support system. I was raised by my grandparents while my mother was fighting her drug addiction. And when I was a senior in high school, my grandmother was diagnosed with brain cancer. And losing her was the worst thing that I've ever experienced. The reason why I bring that up is because before my grandmother passed away, she was able to come to Iowa State for my orientation. I had told her and my grandfather about how excited I was to be here, and I told them about how Iowa State felt like home to me. Within my first semester at Iowa State, I realized that was not actually true. I remember the shock that I felt walking on campus. I came to Ames from a smaller town that had a large Latinx population. Yet when I was here, I felt very alone because there were not many people who I could relate to culturally. It was probably within my very first week at Iowa State that I got harassed for speaking in Spanish, which if we can all admit, my Spanish isn't good and neither is my English, so that's on them. As the years went on, I started realizing more and more things happening on campus. I remember seeing chalk markings of swastikas and other hate being spewed. I remember seeing stickers talking about incarceration rates of Black people in America. We can address systematic incarceration as a result of the 13th Amendment, but that's for another time. I remember seeing flyers advocating for white supremacy. I remember seeing a white supremacist attending a student organization meeting. I remember seeing tweets by a certain student government member advocating for arming up and supporting criminals storming the White House. I remember seeing Wendy Winterstein cater to white students when marginalized students were being hurt. To be completely honest, I hold a lot of animosity towards many individuals at this campus because of these experiences, since some things are absolutely unforgivable. I will never forgive Ryan Hurley for promoting white supremacy, nor will I forgive any student who has voted for him or supported him. I will never forgive Wendy Winterstein for praising the ISU and Ames PD after George Floyd was murdered. I will never forgive Morgan Fritz or Jacob Schrader for disrespecting the BIPOC who make up this institution. I will never forgive Daniel P. or Charles K. or any other senators at the Iowa State student government for making a mockery of students' experiences. I will never forgive Iowa State as an institution for adhering to the white students by showing complacency when others are being oppressed. I will never forgive Iowa State for tokenizing the legacies of Jack Trice and George Washington Carver, especially when there is a building on campus named after a white supremacist. Cat Hall, okay? How am I supposed to continue to fight through my past trauma, maintain academic status, hold my executive position, work, etc., when I'm constantly fighting for myself and others to be seen as equals at this institution? To be completely transparent, I simply cannot. I have struggled greatly with my mental health. I have seen specialists and other therapists for my post-traumatic stress disorder, borderline personality disorder, depression, anxiety, and passively suicidal thoughts. For that reason, I have decided to take a step down from my position and take a step back from Iowa State. As I have stated various times before, I no longer care about obtaining a degree. My only goal ever was to make Iowa State a better place for future students. I have put my heart into everything I have done here, and I recognize that so many others have as well. Quite frankly, I understand that everything I have said or done means absolutely nothing to the vast majority of students and staff at Iowa State. However, this statement is not for them. This statement is for everyone out there that has supported me in my endeavors, for everyone who looks up to me, and to everyone who has been listening. I have fought and will continue to fight for the well-being of all students on campus until my very last day. I hope to continue my work, and I hope that I have made at least some sort of impact on campus leading up to this point. However, I want to make a promise to everyone that I will always remain active in fighting for what is right, regardless of being a student at Iowa State or not. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Well, this room's bigger than I thought. So my name's Will. I'm in the College of Design, and I want to address some of the things today. I also have a timer because I was told that it was 10 minutes, so I want to make sure that we're good to go. And then I would like, Ms. Fritz, could you close your laptop and put your pen down or make sure I have your undivided attention? Thank you. All right, so I've been in student government for 2 years now on a cabinet committee, and I've never once stood at this stand to voice my opinion during an open forum until now. For the past 3 weeks, I've watched my friends and my Iowa State community members beg for the chance to be heard, only to be continuously ignored, and in some cases, shamed for taking time out of their busy schedules to educate other people on the experiences that they've felt, something that you, including me, have never known. And so President Fritz, as well as Vice President Schrader, published a statement condemning the free speech of a woman of color. Racism and discrimination very much live on this campus. I know this because I've witnessed it firsthand, and I know plenty of other people who have witnessed it firsthand. This school advertises to choose your own adventure. That's one of the reasons why I came here, to find a place where I could excel academically, mentally, socially, while building connections and friendships that I would foster for the rest of my life. But I didn't think that if you were Hispanic, that your adventure meant that you'd be subject to insensitive comments like, hey, shouldn't you be mowing a yard or shingling a roof right now? Or, I'm going to call ICE, where are your papers? I didn't think that if you were Asian, that your adventure meant that you could be subject to hate crimes, that this university would allow a mass email to the student body promoting 3D printed guns within a day of a hate-motivated mass shooting in this country. I didn't think that people would laugh and make fun of your eyes or your face or something you were born into, something you can't change. I didn't think that if you were African American or black, that your adventure meant that you would be subject to insensitive comments like, can you dunk? Are you on the football or basketball team? Do you have a huge dick? Or be subject to other people holding their bags firm when walking by you, or getting on the bus, having an open seat next to you, and telling a new rider that that seat's open to them, and them refusing to sit next to you and having a concerned look on their face. I didn't know that if you were to speak the truth about systemic oppression in this society, that you'd be humiliated and oppressed simply for saying that. I didn't think that if you were LGBTQIA+, that your adventure would mean constant harassment, that you're not living in line with traditional biblical and societal values and constantly being told by others that you'll burn in hell for eternal damnation. I would not have the same opportunity, that you would not have the same opportunities to basic needs like a restroom, that you'd be removed from a club for being transgender. I didn't think that if you were a woman, that your adventure meant that you'd be subject to sexual harassment, that you would only look as an object or a conquest to someone else, and that you would walk on campus in the dark with your keys in your hand and take the longest, most inconvenient route to get to your car, that you would have to tell your friend to watch your drink at a party just in case, that you would have in the back of your mind each and every day, is this the day I could be sexually assaulted? What would I do? Where would I go? Who would help? What if it was a stranger? What if it was a friend? What if they told me it was my fault? I didn't think that if you were lost and broken, depressed, and needed help, that your adventure meant that you were a problem, that you were a burden to other people, that you only deserve student teachers and not professional help, that you could be told that you don't belong, that you shouldn't be alive, that if you die, that this place will do everything in its power to make sure it was your fault and that it was your family's fault. I didn't think that if you were white, that your adventure meant that you could constantly be reminded that you are welcome, that you're supposed to be in charge, that only you matter. I didn't know that that meant that you could make insensitive and impulsive calls to action for fear and emotion in the community and still walk the halls of this university. I didn't know that even after that, your speech would be empowered by members and leaders in this community and emboldened to other members of this community to look for opportunities, for precedents to be made, that they could continue this madness and this division. I hope everyone got the chance to see who's sitting further back in their chairs, who isn't paying attention, who's rolling their eyes, because that's the problem. People in leadership positions, they don't even want to make the attempt to try to understand experiences that don't directly affect them. These are the voices of our students. These are their experiences. I've talked to them. Have any of you? I came here with a lot of hope. I hope for the principles of community, for respect, for purpose, for cooperation, for richness of diversity, for freedom from discrimination, for honest and respectful expressions of ideas. Why don't we follow them? How can we build credibility as an organization if we don't even live up to these ourselves? What happens when people on the news see how dysfunctional this organization is, how dysfunctional this institution is? What happens when marginalized communities see things like that and they say to themselves, no, I'm not welcomed? The answer is they don't come here. They don't feel comfortable. They don't feel safe. They don't feel like they belong at this university. When a student-run organization says that they only care about a certain type of person. President Fritz and Vice President Schrader campaigned and won their election cycle on the slogan, "Campus is greater with Fritz and Schrader." I think that a more appropriate slogan would be, "Campus is greater for some with Fritz and Schrader." Because you are continually putting your future above your friends in your community. You have had members of this community come up here, voice their opinions, their concerns, their questions. You have had members of your sorority say that they looked up to you from the day you took office and that they were friends and they wanted to be like you. But you continually back yourself into a corner thinking that this is a partisan group where you can build a career off of it. That is what's wrong with student government right now, is that people use this for their own personal ambitions and personal gains. This isn't about making people assimilate to our beliefs. This is giving them the opportunity to have their own beliefs. Every time we've departed from this organization and this institution's values, we've come to regret it. And that regret's not written by those in charge. It's written by those who are directly affected by our leadership and the experiences that they live out every day. Step out of your comfort zones. Open your mind to other people's experiences. Differences are what make us all unique. So let's accommodate all of them. Had to get the timer out. All right, for the wrap up, because it has been 371 days, 18 hours, 57 minutes, 7 seconds, 8 seconds, 9 seconds, 10 seconds since both of you have taken office, and people are still hating, people are still helpless, people are still hurting, and nothing has changed. I've voiced my concerns about this community in the past, and all I've been met with is anger, frustration, and hate from other individuals, as well as the university. So thank you for your time tonight. But I probably will be, going to the Dean of Students' office because they think I'm the problem for talking to you guys about what I experience and about what my friends experience, and about things that you don't think about. And that's all I got.
Hello there. My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm one of the LAS senators here in student government today. And I'm just going to express some of the things I know, maybe a little bit hot takes, for lack of a better word, that comes to my mind. But I just felt like I couldn't stomach not sharing my own personal experiences. So a lot of the things that we talk about in student government are how to make tangible effects. I thought today we'd talk a little bit about intangibles. I thought that I'd start a little bit today about, with just a little side story that I have about how I joined student government. But first, I'd like to start off by saying last week, that resolution that I passed about, or that I proposed about the memorial honoring Celia Rosamena, that was originally Senator Hurley's idea, and I'd like to just thank him for that, for the idea, and I think it shows a little bit about his character, and to show that he did consider that proposal. And for lack of controversy, he wanted me to write the bill, and so I thank him for that. Additionally, I'd also like to thank him for being the first person to ever invite me into student government. Last year when I got elected, I remember walking into the room full of newly elected senators and the executive seats. And then, I've been in student government all 4 years that I've been in student government. I largely felt shy and uncomfortable when I was in the meetings that I was in. I didn't feel very welcome, and a lot of that was just that I felt like such an outsider. But when I got elected, it was the first person that said thank you to me was Ryan. And I remember he said, I think you're a good guy. And he even told his friends, he might disagree with us on the majority of political things, but he was happy to have me in the room. And, I like to thank him for extending that arm and welcoming me. So thank you for that. I didn't know anything about Senator Hurley at the time before, or that is currently, a cause of controversy for him. But I knew him because we had a class together, and we were friends. And for that, I still appreciate him today. Going on to another intangible. This is something that I'm probably most passionate about, and it's discussing campus climate and promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's something that I was the most passionate about running for when I was running for my seat as a senator, was the campus climate. I largely ran to identify campus-wide programs or problems such as trademark and the chalking policy, which I still think I am passionate about. And overall, all of campus climate is still something that I care much about. But today I'd like to just talk about a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I was talking to one of my friends yesterday. She's an international student from New Delhi, and she described progress towards promoting diversity as eating an elephant, as she put it. You have to take one bite at a time, she said. But respectfully, I would like to disagree and point out that this initiative is too dire to eat slowly. Let's give everybody a spot at the table to eat this elephant, and the more people we get involved, the faster we can come to resolve the racial prejudice on this campus. To President-elect Campbell and Vice President-elect Decker, I look forward to you leading this campus and overcoming the issue of racism throughout this organization and at Iowa State University. We must not act towards this goal with hostility, and I call on the people of color who have been outspoken during our meetings to work towards the acceptance of diversity with an outreaching hand. Hostility will drive people away, and that is not what we are trying to achieve. Myself, as a person of color, feel as though I do not wish to work with people who have different means of achieving the same goal, because I cannot stand with the people who speak during open forum and belittle the people in this room. And there are people of all skin tones who have felt belittled by the statements we have heard over the last few weeks. I would like to thank my longtime friend, Jacob Fryer, for always viewing me as a person and does not put any description on that, as he described last week. That is the way I often think of myself, and I do not appreciate attaching any sort of color to myself. When I am doing business in this room, I also appreciate that no one treats me any differently based on the color of my skin either. In that sense, I would like to respond to the tokenization the people of color felt last week and say that even while I do carry myself and my skin color wherever I go, just as many of the open forum speakers have said, it is not my job to acknowledge that at all times or act based on my race at all times. In that sense, too, I do not like to be taken for granted as a person of color. 2 weeks ago, someone came up to this podium and stated that all white people voted to limit time allowed to speak, and all people of color voted the opposite way. Well, this is not the case, as I am a person of color who voted to limit the amount of time allocated to open forum speakers, and I know other people of color who voted the same way as me as well. In addition, whenever you speak of the people of color who are no longer sitting in this room, recognize that while some do feel too uncomfortable to remain seated, there are others who are absent for other reasons. And as their friend, I do not appreciate you speaking on their behalf without knowing anything about them but their skin color, especially because some of these leaders wish they were here still to fight against racism with you. Recognize also that while people of color in this organization do not actively work with Recognize also that many people of color in this organization do not actively work with DE&I. Mostly people, we have other areas of passion, myself included. While promoting diversity is incredibly important to me, I am busy doing other things, and so are other people of color. So if you are ready to condemn white people for not promoting diversity, recognize that there are people of color who also could work harder towards that. Lastly, I would like to condemn the way President Fritz, Vice President Schrader, and Senator Pfeiffer have been addressed the last few weeks. Knowing and working with these people personally, I can say that these people are extremely qualified to lead and have done great things for the student body, whether those actions are recognized or not. Their egos are dependent on much more than their race and their sex, and taking notes during open forum does not imply that one does not care or does not listen. I also took notes while many of the open forum speakers were speaking, and I have been paying attention. Bullying our leaders and my friends is not something I can stand by and watch. I would like to conclude by stating that promoting diversity is of the utmost importance to myself and to many others in this room. And if you aren't on board with this initiative, it's time to get on board. We cannot waste any more time. It is crucial that we move forward in this initiative and hold unity as the end goal. Let's get this clear. Students on our campus, not some other country, not Georgia, not New York, but here at ISU, feel uncomfortable and unsafe. And it will be the quality of any leader on this campus to work towards those students to resolve these issues and demand of the administration to assist us in this goal. I ask of our future leaders to pursue this goal relentlessly. Thank you.
Good to go? Yep. Hello. First, I'd like to thank Daniel Hayes, Senator Daniel Hayes. What a great speech, very true. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Secondly, I was asked by a close friend of mine who was scared to come out here today to give a little bit of a speech. I just took the exact wording from the student's email to me, and this is what I'm going to read. Hello, I'm a student from mainland China. I am unable to be here today because me or my family would almost certainly be punished for my words. In China, we do not have the same freedom of speech granted to all Americans. Coming here, I was initially shocked at the freedoms given to everyone. People casually mocked President Trump. Well, in China, mocking Xi Jinping will result in you being punished greatly. I am having Senator Hurley speak this because he helped teach me about my country's atrocious acts. I will always be proud to be Chinese, but I am wishing I could switch places with those who hate the American freedom. I listen to the student government video every day, and I see so much disrespect for people I call friends. I have not experienced racism in America. I think racism is bad, but nobody has been racist to me. I am lucky to be here where people do not have racism. If you are looking for racism, the Chinese Communist Party kills Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang province. I only found out about that when I had the freedom of Iowa State. Thank you. That is her speech. I think that is that student's speech. I think that was very important, and I thank that person for emailing me. I would like to give how much time do I have left?
8 minutes.
I would like to have the remainder of this time be a moment of silence for those Xinjiang Uyghur Muslims who are killed on a daily basis.
The speaking privilege for open forum has expired.
Hey, thank you.
Are there any further comments for open forum? Then seeing none, we'll move into committee reports. First is Rules Committee with Speaker Ludwig.
All right, rules met for its last meeting on Monday. We sent 77Y, which is the Election Commission Quorum Bill, favorably. We sent the Umbrella Project bylaw bill favorably. We sent the the Open Records Act unfavorably. That was because we're unsure that the Senate actually has the authority to do this, and since there's been discussions internally about making this happen anyways, the Senate order is kind of unnecessary. We sent 80Y, adding the Director of Affordability to the bylaws favorably. We sent 81Y, removing the Excellence Fund favorably. We sent 82Y, adding the Director of Governmental Relations to the Civic Engagement Committee favorably. And we sent 96SA, the new Cyride Partners Agreement favorably. And the Chapter 4 rewrite was sent favorably as well. So.
Oh. That's my bad. I am sorry. I didn't have the agenda up, so I guessed wrong. Sorry. Before we move on to questions for Speaker Ludwig, we'll go on to adopting the agenda. Are there any edits or corrections to tonight's agenda?
To adopt last week's minutes?
There's been a motion to adopt, sorry, Senator Vate, was that a motion for the agenda or for the minutes? We're on the agenda currently.
My bad, the agenda.
Okay. There's been a motion to approve the agenda. There's a second. Is there any objection? Then seeing none, the agenda for tonight's meeting has been approved. We'll move on to approval of the minutes from last week. Are there any edits or corrections to last week's minutes?
Move to adopt last week's minutes?
Been a motion to approve. There was a second. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the minutes have been approved. Are there any questions for Speaker Ludwig regarding Rules Committee? Then seeing none, we'll move on to Finance with Finance Director Klass.
Yeah, hello. Ooh, wow, I'm closer to all of you than I usually am. So we just have one bill that's allocating any money. It's funding softball club. Because of a conflict, they do not have a representative here tonight. I will be speaking for them. It's a super simple one. It's just travel because of university policy. They have to have another vehicle because of COVID restrictions. So they're asking for that. And then we do have asset priorities, which our fabulous treasurer, Ruli, did. Please ask him questions. He is infinitely more versed in asset than I am and has done a really great job this year. So again, asset's something that we don't always talk about, but is really important and something that we do that's like good for all of Iowa State and everyone. So please just be appreciative of the work that Max has done this year. It's really important. And then another one is also getting rid of the Excellence Fund. That's a fund, I talked about it, I think, a little bit last week. It's just kind of not super usable, unfortunately. So getting rid of that. And I think that's all I have. Yeah, this is my last Senate meeting. Woo. So thanks for serving all this year. I sent it in my email as well, but from a fellow student, thank you. I know this is not finance related, so somebody can stop me. I'm sure Ludwig would love to stop me from speaking because you started at the beginning of the year not wanting me to speak. But from a fellow student, thank you, because it's not something that everyone, we've had obviously more attention to us recently, but we don't always get seen or all the projects that we do are noticed. So I notice them. Thank you. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your time commitment. And yeah, I will yield unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Finance Director Klass? Okay, then we'll move on to PR Committee. And is that with Director Crabb? Great.
All right, hi all. Thank you for the good discussion tonight. Some of the things we're working on, we just did our transition documents so we're moving over. So we're really excited to see what next Senior Director of Communications and Director of Outreach are going to do. I'll be in Senate next year, so I'm going to be so excited to see these updates next year. Some of the things we're working on, I am moving this onto UROC next year, but we're working on doing fundraising options for 2 organizations a month, so that maybe students that don't fit into our P&C, we can give them options of fundraising, and we can do kind of like all the dirty work and just tell them to show up and just promote it. So we'll kind of have our name on that. And then also, thank you all so much for your time this year.
Are there any questions for Director Crabb? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Diversity and Inclusion Committee with President Fritz.
So the program that I gave at the beginning of the night tonight, if you have any comments on that, please just let me know and we can get that put into the appropriate transition documents. Again, those are just recommendations and ideas, kind of brainstorm stuff that people can use for next Senate, next executive branch. So if you have any thoughts there, let me know. Anything you'd like to add to the list, please get those to me and I can add them. Thank you.
Any questions for Diversity and Inclusion Committee? Senator Weathers.
I just wanted to move to add Senator Bender to the roll.
There's been a motion to add Senator Bender to the roll. Is there any objection? None. The senator's been added. Would someone mind adding Senator Pfeiffer as well?
I'll move to add Senator Pfeiffer's and Hurley to the roll.
Oh, sorry. So there's been a motion to add Senators Pfeiffer and Hurley to the roll as well. Is there any objection? Seeing none, those senators have been added as well. Thank you. Are there any further questions for Diversity and Inclusion Committee? Okay, then seeing none, we'll go to Student Initiatives with Senator Advait.
Hey everyone, SI had their last regular meeting earlier today. The primary focus was the campus safety walk, which is finally happening, the 8th of April. That is next Thursday, starting around 8:30 p.m. So it'll be dark enough for us to see areas that are dimly lit. Details will be coming out soon. It's been 2 years since we last had the campus safety walk, I believe, so it's really exciting. Please join in if you can. We will be sending out a form by email, so all of you can RSVP. And this could also be a great bonding event for the new Senate, so the new senators can get to know each other. Additionally, we also talked about the future of the committee and projects that'll have to be handed off. And we informally discussed a resolution in short. That's all.
Are there any questions for Student Initiatives Committee? And seeing none, we'll move to Civic Engagement Committee with Senator Schulte.
That was embarrassing. I just wasn't able to turn the button the right way. We did not meet this week. We had our last meeting last week. However, I look forward to meeting with the new Civic Engagement Chair and then addressing 2020-3-082Y, adding the Director of Governmental Relations to Civic Engagement. We are fully on board with that and eagerly await that person joining the committee. I think that's a really useful insight. Thank you.
Any questions for Civic Engagement Committee? All right. And I'm going to pause here, and I think we should all give a round of applause to our committee chairs for the work they've done throughout the year. So we've had every single committee has had to figure out how it works in a pandemic, and I can't think of a committee that did a bad job with it, and that's a lot of extra effort that wasn't required in previous years. So I just thanks everybody. We'll move on to comments from the executive branch with President Fritz.
As for updates for the week, there have been various Dean of the Library interviews for candidates for that I've been attending. We also had a meeting, Vice President Schrader and I had a meeting with GPSS and President Winterstein just to talk about general campus affairs and whatnot and kind of a wrap up of the year. Additionally, we had a meeting with Dr. Younger, just also about general student affairs and kind of another wrap up as well as our last meeting with her. And so I just, aside from that, I would quickly like to thank you all for your work this year. I mean, just thinking back to the beginning of our terms, we were all sent home for spring break, never to return again, and that was a crazy position to be put in for everyone involved. And thinking back to then of all the work that's been done since there is it's just crazy. But a lot of what we do as student government is unseen work. It's not glitzy, it's not glamorous a lot of the time, but it's necessary for students to be well represented and to make sure that student concerns are brought to the table there. So I really appreciate all the work that everyone has done within their positions this year. It's, been a very tough and difficult year, but you've all done a great job with it. So thank you all for your work there. Additionally, please RSVP to inauguration if you can make it there. I'm looking forward to that event. We'll just be sending home some goodie bags with people and sending old senators off and welcoming new senators and executive slates in. So that should be a lot of fun. Kind of going off of that, I'm really excited and looking forward to being able to watch Julia and Megan lead. I've been very impressed by both of their work throughout this year, and I feel so incredibly confident in their abilities to do the work next year. So I'm just really excited and happy for them, and it's going to be a great year. So thank you all for your work, and that's all from me.
Thank you. Are there any comments for President Fritz? Then seeing none, we'll move on to our business for the evening. So we'll start with external matters. We have 2020-3-085F, funding softball club, and that is with Senator Zastro.
Yeah, so this is a bill, class talked about it a little bit. Basically, last year during the annual allocation process, softball club was planning on going to a competition in Kansas. When we did the line item transfer, changing it to Nebraska, which is where their updated event is, we needed to consider that they needed an additional van because of COVID policies. So even though it's a lesser distance, they added another vehicle, and it ended up being $11.76 of difference. This is when we need something in the bylaws that finance directors can unilaterally pass bills. That's not a policy position, let it be known. That was just satire. Yeah, so I don't imagine there will be too many questions. Class is happy to answer them. I'll yield.
So Senator Zastro yields. We'll go into the general discussion period for the bill. There's been a call to question on the bill. There's a second. Is there any objection? Then seeing none, Senator Zastro, closing statement.
It's an honor to write my last regular finance bill. Thank you all. I yield.
All right. So we will move into a roll call vote. Please vote yes, no, or abstain. Atagarla. Advait. Anderson. Bender. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Hayes. Hurley. Klaptauskas. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastro. A vote of 22 to 0, this funding request passes. We'll move on to 2020-3-078A, adopting revised student government priorities for asset funding with Senator Zastro.
Yeah, if Treasurer Rulli would like to come on up, I cannot talk about this bill like I talked about the last one. So every year we recommend priorities for asset so that they can evaluate the specific programs that are given to them and see what we fund kind of through this lens of these priorities. So Max, if you'd like to go through the list, talk about more of the background.
Yeah, thank you. So these priorities I had drafted over the past few months. They are an expansion of the priorities that I had we'd previously been using. So the priorities on here, essentially they were only the bolded sections from numbers 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It was really short. It was literally just like 5 lines. I wanted to add an expansion to it because I wanted to be more specific about the programs that we do fund, the great programs that these nonprofits offer. The other addition I made was adding the bullet number 2. It is these services addressing basic needs for students. 2 of these issues are the food pantry and food vouchers, and then rent and utility assistance. I had spoken to Dr. Brian Vanderhayden at Student Wellness, and he referred me to some data that has been collected in recent years about basic needs for students. Just a little bit about that. According to the Healthy Mind Study, which was in November of 2019, and the National College Health Assessment, which is in February 2019, About 20 to 25% of ISU students worry about whether food would run out before they get money to buy more. And this number jumps to 35% for students underrepresented by race or ethnicity. Adding number 2 here was one of my biggest priorities for, well, revising these priorities. And essentially, all the bullets, this is all in non-priority order. This is when we do the allocation for asset funds, the volunteers look at the list. I just want this list isn't in any order. We're not prioritizing any of these items more than the other. So the number on there doesn't really essentially mean anything. I'd love to take questions if anybody has them.
All right, we'll go into the general debate period for the bill. So please raise your placard if you have a point for debate. It's been a call to question. A second. Is there any objection to voting now on the bill? Seeing none, Senator Zastrow, closing statement.
I'd like to thank Treasurer Rulli one more time for doing this. You put a lot of work, a lot of effort. I remember passing last year's criteria, and they really were really simple. And I think just flushing these out a little bit has been really helpful for us as a Senate to know what each of those bullets means. Really appreciate all the work that you've done. And this is a really cool thing that Senate does. I know I gave the speech like 2 weeks ago, but really appreciate ASSET, and thank you all for voting on this.
Thank you. We'll move into a roll call vote. Please vote yes, no, or abstain. Adegarla. Idvate. Anderson. Bender. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Hayes. Hurley. Klaptauskas. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastrow. Lona. Rinchie. Okay, with a vote of 20 to 0 to 2, the asset funding priorities are approved.
Thank you.
Thanks. So moving on, we have 2020-3-096SA, approving the new SciRide Partners Agreement with Speaker Ludwig.
Okay, so this is our 10-year partner agreement with the other funding partners for SciRide, which is Iowa State University and the City of Ames. This basically lays out a lot of the ground rules for the agreement between the three funding partners, gives structure to the how the fee that we have set aside for students for SciRide, sets up the board and things like that. This is a really important agreement. SciRide is a fantastic service that is unique at Iowa State. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, it was ranked 3rd per capita in the country. It was last year, sorry. So it was New York, San Francisco, and then Ames, Iowa for per capita ridership, which I think is really awesome and a really unique thing for the city of Ames and for Iowa State. SciRide is, I could, I guess, sit up here and just go on about how I like SciRide and how I think it's important. If you have questions, please refer them to either myself or Vice President Schrader, who is the president of the SciRide Board of Trustees, and I'm also a trustee on the SciRide Board. So we can answer any questions that you have about what the contract looks like. This is really, really important that we pass this and set it up so that SciRide can continue to be something that we benefit from in the years to come. So I will yield for discussion.
Senator Pfeiffer.
Speaker Ludwig, what's your favorite bus route?
So I'm a big fan of Gold 25, and anyone from Towers will understand that. Gold 25 is like how I was able to be, I guess, like so involved on campus. It made it easier for me to get there. I think it came like every 10 minutes to Towers. I like that. I don't know what you two are laughing about. Goal 25 is by far my favorite, so.
That's a pretty good option. I think I'll vote yes. I yield.
Senator Zastro.
This is a 10-year agreement, so I do think we should be having some discussion about this. I think it's a good thing that we enter, and I think that SciRide is something that we should continue to support, so I don't have any criticisms over this actually. But here's some fun facts so that we are having discussion. Any bus route that begins with the number 2, those ones are free, even without your ID. That's a little life hack at Iowa State University of Science and Technology. I would also like to voice my support for 25 Gold as a former resident of Wilson Hall. 25 Gold saved my life week in, week out. Big fan. I yield.
Senator Stenzel.
Quick question, does this involve the comeback of the Gold 22 route?
Senator Mass has repeatedly asked the board to consider adding the route back that goes in front of Farmhouse. We did price it out. We did give the common courtesy in our budget meeting last year for Senator Mass. We priced it out, and it was going to be over $200,000 a year to do, and we weren't sure that that was worth, that the increased service of not walking to either Brown or Gold or Orange from Greekland was worth that price when we have other funding priorities.
So the answer is no?
The answer is no.
On that basis, I'll be voting no and encouraging all to do the same.
All right. Senator Weathers.
Yeah, obviously SciRide's a great program, but we talked about this in Rules Committee, some concerns with the actual contract itself. This is a 10-year agreement, which is pretty unusual for, I mean, it's typical for contracts, but if you're going to, if one of those partners in a contract is going to be student government, which has such a high turnover every single year, let alone, well, at the maximum every 4 years. Vice President Schrader, is there anything we can do at this point in the process? Admittedly, it's pretty late, but can the time frame on this contract be shortened? Can that be renegotiated at all?
I would be unsure in student government specifically ability to get another contract up in Senate because the old agreement expires June 1st. So we would have to go back out to the university and the city and renegotiate it and get SciRide to pass it, and Senate doesn't have that many weeks left.
Right.
So I would be worried about Senate being able to consider the legislation. I would say, though, that this is simply providing the oversight for the student fees. This contract in itself has no money in it. That is determined by the Board of Regents with the input of the Student Fee Committee. So if student government ever in this next decade decided that it didn't want to commit that much money to SciRide, it could, through the fee committee, withdraw that amount and not be out of terms of this contract.
Okay, so this contract doesn't determine any sort of percentages on who's paying how much money?
No, it's really just about the oversight, how the board is structured, and how does student money come into SciRide and the trust fund mechanisms and the agreements regarding that.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me before now. Thank you.
Yeah. I think Senator Bender is already on the roll. All right, Senator Hayes.
Yeah, so you were just talking about like how this doesn't have any money involved with it. So I'm reading that like the payment of the agreed level of contribution by the student government is to be made by, from the student fees assessed for that purpose. And like that, there will always be some like disparity for that, but then we're confident that it won't result in any carryover. Is that, how are the funds like going to be allocated? And is that like a yearly thing, or how's that dealt with?
Right, so as students pay their student fees, just like student government, that money goes into an account. SciRide's account is called the Student Government Trust Fund, and that hopefully has enough money in it so that if there's any discrepancies that you can take a little bit more out as money comes in later. But essentially we have a bank account with SciRide as students, and as the board commits to funding, the proportionate amount is taken out of that trust fund. So if the money wasn't in the trust fund, we would have to work through that. The contract spells out what happens there, but that's the mechanism it uses. Essentially, we have a savings account, and we pay for SciRide out of that savings account.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Senator Debate.
Just a question for Vice President Schrader. Do you know how many students serve on the board?
2.
And what is the total membership of the board?
6.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think this is something that also came up in the Rules Committee a little. It's that student government puts in almost 67%. That's 2/3 of the funding for this, and has 2 out of 6, so that's 1/3 of the representatives on the board. I guess just reading the contract, Section 3A, is that just defined by Iowa code then, and having nothing to do with this contract? The composition, I mean.
I think the composition has been there for a long time,
Uh-huh.
and no one has seriously looked into changing it, so I wouldn't know how to answer your question about if there's state code requirements.
Yeah, I guess just wondering if there's anything we can do, who we could talk to sort of improve student representation to reflect, I guess, the amount of money we put in, maybe.
I think that's a conversation that could be had.
Mhm.
I would say that the board is currently set up so there's 3 university and 3 city is kind of how it's looked at, with 2 students and 1 university administrator, the senior president of finance or vice president of finance. And then the city has a mayoral appointee, a city councilor, as well as the city manager serves on the board. So it's even that way. I'll say the last 3 board presidents, and that's all I know, were students. And we've never had a split vote as the board. If there's student concerns, we'll get it addressed beforehand. So I agree that hypothetically there could be a future where maybe students would like more voting representation, but I don't think any more students on the board would have changed any vote or outcome in the 3 years that I've been on it.
Thank you so much for that. I didn't mean to imply that we're not being represented well enough, just, I guess, thinking out loud, but thank you so much. I yield.
Thank you. Senator Hurley. Sometimes if you press towards the top of the button, it gets a little better.
Jermaine.
I do not find that amendment germane to the intent of the bill. Sorry, Senator Hurley. It's been a call to question. Second, is there any objection? Been seeing none, we'll move into a closing statement from Senator Ludwig.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, this is a really important contract. It's really important that we have this set up for SciRide to be, continue to function so that we have that oversight over the student fees that we're sending to this organization. And we have kind of a ground game plan for how things should function. So I really encourage everyone to vote yes so that we can continue to have this great service in Ames and at Iowa State. So thank you.
That will move into a roll call vote because this is a contract that requires 2/3 of seated senators. Please vote yes, no, or abstain. Adegarla. Advait. Anderson. Bender. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Hayes. Hurley. Klaptauskas. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Appreciate it. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastro. Then with a vote of 22-0, the SciRide contract has been renewed. Move on to internal matters. Within internal matters, general orders. We have 2020-3-077Y, reducing quorum for the Election Commission with Senator Mass.
Yeah, this bill does what it says it does, and I yield.
Are there any points for debate? Senator Zastro.
Yeah, we just got ours changed by a constitutional amendment. We passed our amendment for committees a few weeks ago. So I think it's only fair that we do the same thing for Election Commission. Seeing no other placard, oh, never mind, I yield.
Senator Pfeiffer?
Could we briefly go over what reasons, like, do they have specific reasons why they want to reduce it? Senator Mass.
I can talk about that a little bit. So this is, obviously, we've kind of gone over the reasons why 2/3 quorum are bad in general. But Election Commission in particular has had a very weird quorum mechanism in the past where they've had non-voting members that they could elevate to voting status in order to achieve 2/3 quorum. The reason why that existed is because there are emergency situations during the election season where they have to have a meeting within 24 hours and have to very quickly get everyone together. Obviously, reducing quorum then to simple majority will make it much easier for them to do that and make their decisions for such emergency meetings.
Sounds good. Thank you. I yield.
It's been a call to question. A second. Is there any objection? Senator Mass, closing statement.
I think this is a good bill. I think it's good to reduce quorum to majority. I yield.
That will move into a roll call vote. Please vote yes, no, or abstain. Adegarla. Advait. Anderson. Bender. Emery. Vahim. Goff. Hayes. Hurley. Klaptauskas. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastro. Vahim. Goff. And with a vote of 20 to 0 to 2, this bylaw change is approved. We'll move on to 2020-3-079Y, Umbrella Sharing Project Bylaw Bill with Senator Zastro.
Yeah, so we passed the funding for the umbrella sharing project last week. We wanted to we waited first read on that so that we could order the umbrellas quicker. We figured we could still wait a week on this, which is why we're seeing them in different weeks. So this does two things. First, it changes the bylaws so that a duty of the advisor is to conduct an inventory of the umbrella sharing project at the beginning of each semester and to communicate the results of that inventory to the chair of the Student Initiatives Committee. And then the second bylaw that's changed says that the chair of the Student Initiatives Committee is then in charge of cooperating with the finance director to order replacements so that the inventory is maintained semester to semester. So yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward. Happy to take any questions, but this is just kind of putting into stone the project that we already funded last week. I yield.
Okay, we'll move into the general discussion period for the bill. Speaker Ludwig.
Yeah, I'm going to move to amend the second to last enacted clause to replace the chair of the Student Initiatives Committee with the Director of Student Services.
There's been an amendment to replace who is responsible from the chair of the Student Initiatives Committee with the Director of Student Services. There was a second. Is there any objection to consideration of the amendment?
Object.
There's an objection to the consideration of the amendment. We'll move into a debate on if we should consider the amendment. Speaker Ludwig, 15-minute debate period. You have 5 minutes on why we should debate the amendment.
Okay, so this was something we talked about in committee and something I've talked about with Director of Outreach Crabb, Senator Mass, Chief of Staff Rowling, and a number of other people. The point of this is that long-term projects are typically something that we give to the cabinet. When we decide that we want to do something long-term, we usually assign it to a cabinet position. And so this, the reason I'm proposing this amendment and the reason we should discuss it is because I believe that this is a reasonable change that more correctly aligns with the fact that cabinet members carry out long-term projects. When we decide we want to do something long-term, like lobby down at the state capitol, we set up a Director of Governmental Affairs and a Legislative Ambassadors program, and we do it, and we give it to the executive. The purpose of Senate and senators and Senate committees is to create, and certainly they have a role in, helping with ongoing projects. But if we're going to set up something that lasts long-term, it should be in the executive. Just on, I guess, a related note, I think more frankly that the executive has better transitions and documents and people who maybe have a little bit more leeway to dedicate time towards these projects than maybe a senator would, given the kind of tugging back and the varying levels of commitment required by Senate. So that's why I made the amendment. I think it's important for us to make that distinction and move the responsibility to this position. So I will yield for discussion.
Senator Zastro.
Sorry, maybe this should have been a point of information instead of an objection on the motion. 7.8 is the duties of the chair of SI committee, so this would be an inappropriate amendment.
Okay. Sorry, let me move it. I thought that this was under the committee section because the Director of Student Services is on SI committee, so give me a second.
I might be wrong, I'm sorry. When I wrote the bill, that's what I thought it was.
If I would be willing to make an amendment to the amendment or withdraw and remake the amendment. So if you withdraw your objection.
Yeah,
I will be able
I'll
to
withdraw
do
my
that.
objection.
So the objection has been withdrawn, so we will go into debate. Unless are there further objections to consideration of the amendment? Then we'll go into debate on the amendment.
Okay.
Speaker Ludwig on the amendment.
Right. Let me pull up the specific section. I apologize for this. I thought I knew what section we were looking at. Okay. I will make an amendment to the amendment to change the bylaw referenced to 7.8.3.1.
Okay, there's been a secondary amendment proposed. There was a second. Is there any objection to consideration of the secondary amendment? And seeing none, we're on debate on the secondary amendment. Speaker Ludwig.
Yep. Sorry about that little mix-up. So like I was talking about earlier, I think just on principle and just for, I think the long-term impact of this project and making sure that it happens correctly, it's important that we give this to a cabinet position.
Speaker Ludwig, I ask that you keep your comments on the secondary amendment, which is the bylaw reference.
Thank you. I'll call the question on the secondary amendment. Thank you.
Okay, there was a call to question on the secondary amendment. There's a second. Is there any objection to voting on the secondary amendment? So seeing none, there's been a call for unanimous consent to fix the bylaw reference. Is there any objection? And seeing none, the secondary amendment has been approved by unanimous consent. Speaker Ludwig on the primary amendment.
Okay, what I was just saying, and moving on, I think this is important. I would encourage discussion, but yeah, so I'll yield.
Senator Advait.
Hello, everyone. So there's a couple things here that I'd like to address. First of all, I completely understand the arguments that are brought up on principle. However, under that same principle, SI really should not be doing 90% of what it's doing, and I'm of the opinion that if we have a system that works well to attract and serve students, that is the most important part. Secondly, this is a new and developing project. If we need to, we can move it later. For now, however, it is a new project that is being created, so it makes the most sense to keep it with SI. And in any case, writing a bill to replenish, to buy new umbrellas and replenish that inventory is kind of a legislative task anyway. Thirdly, the bylaws have a requirement that the SI chair be seated within 2 meetings of the new Senate, I believe. If I remember correctly, there is no such requirement for cabinet appointees and their confirmation. As such, we will always have the position filled, especially when we need it early in the semester. Fourth, if this goes to the cabinet, we would be sending this to a single individual that can resign or be removed at any time. In fact, the position is currently vacant, so this isn't some hypothetical. The bylaws do not have an order of succession for cabinet roles, I believe, at least not clearly defined. On the other hand, SI does have a chair, as well as a vice chair and other members ready to take over. Fifth, I do not see the point in having the advisor check the inventory, then letting an individual in cabinet know, and then that individual in turn reaching out to a senator to write the bill, which has to be written anyway, when that senator would probably be the SI chair anyway. I believe Senator Bender had an argument about the finances and how this would work better going to a senator anyway, but I'll let them make that for themselves. In conclusion, I just think it is best to keep the intent of this project as it was written by the authors. They have worked hard to set up a new project, which is more than a lot of us here, myself included, and they have a certain vision for how it would work best. I believe it's best to let them have that vision. With the circumstances as they stand, I would ask for a brief, concise debate, and as much as I would like less work for me or my successors, ask that we vote to keep the language the way it is. So please vote no on this amendment. I yield.
Senator Zastrow.
Yeah, I don't think this makes a monumental difference either way, but I do think it would be best to keep it under SI. Another point that was made was that people in SI people who are the chair of SI have typically been senators before, which means they have a better understanding of the funding process, and they can, since this is being issued to them at the beginning of each semester, having an experience of how to write a bill, how to communicate with the finance director is something that the SI chair would probably have better than somebody who is a cabinet appointee who frequently haven't been members of student government before, and it might take them a little bit just to come to understand the funding process, which is fairly complicated. I don't think it makes a huge difference either way, but I just think it would be more efficient if it was the chair of SI. I yield.
Senator Pfeiffer.
Yeah, I certainly see why we'd want to put it in the executive, but I also understand the concerns with not having it under SI where the position may not be filled potentially if it's in the executive. And I believe some people in the back wanted to say something, so yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to echo everything that Ed Veit and Mason said tonight. All of my thoughts just clear out of my head. I am so sorry. But a good example of this is for this year. Our Director of Student Services is not with us at the moment. She does work closely with SI, but if the SI chair does resign, there's still members of Senate in SI, and I think keeping it as an SI chair would be smart, just repeating. So I would just, as one of the writers of this bill, I would like y'all to vote no on this amendment. Thank you so much.
If we do vote no, we'll also have to change the bylaw reference back, which will be fun, but we can figure that out when we come to it.
Nope.
We won't?
Since that amendment is tied up with this one, they're together.
Okay, never mind. I yield.
Senator Mass.
Certainly, I understand the concerns from SI committee, but I think we're getting a little bit too focused in the personalities of the particular people who created this project rather than the long-term sustainability of the project. At the end of the day, it's important that the executive branch be given the job to execute the bylaws. We as the Senate's job is to change the bylaws when they don't work and provide funding for things that the executive branch needs to do their jobs. At the end of the day, it makes much more sense for this to be a cabinet position. I think there's very little water in the argument that we may not have a Director of Student Services, because if the Director of Student Services has a job that needs to be done, it is the duty of the President to make sure there is someone to do that job. The Constitution says it is the job of the President to make sure that the bylaws of the student government are executed. So I think that's a relatively bad argument. I understand, obviously, that the Student Initiatives Committee comes up with new initiatives and they help execute initiatives. That's part of their job. But if we're talking something that is going to be a structural, long-term thing, I've seen student initiatives bounce between having a chair that is completely new, having no chair, completely change its directive and its entire goal during my time in student government. SI is not the most stable place to put this. At the end of the day, the cabinet generally is more stable than any Senate committee. So I think that's the better place to put that. Aside from the actual constitutional concerns that we may be giving the Senate a power it does not have in the Constitution with this bill, and therefore could be struck down by the Supreme Court if this bill were to pass, I would say that it's better for it to be in the executive branch at the end of the day. In addition to that, I understand the argument that senators write finance bills, but we pass hundreds of finance bills. Okay, maybe not hundreds. We don't even pass 100 bills. But dozens of finance bills every session that are coming from a club who has no idea how to write a finance bill. And that's because they go and they talk to Matthew or they talk to the finance committee, and the finance committee helps them to write a bill for what they need. In addition, since this is a StuGov expense, I wouldn't be surprised if long-term this makes more sense to be put in annual allocations, that we're going to budget a certain amount that we expect to spend on this every year to replace something that we own. That makes a lot of sense to me institutionally. It makes more sense for this to be in cabinet for those reasons. So I'm going to vote in favor of the amendment.
Speaker Ludwig.
Yeah, I'd like to echo a lot of what Senator Acting Vice Speaker Mass has said. I think this is, like it's been said before, a new and growing project, and I think that's exactly a reason to put it under a cabinet position or tie it to a cabinet position. SI committee, the SI chair, and the senators and at-larges on it have a lot of different things that they're focusing on. I would rather have someone who can deal with this, have it be a primary focus of their job. I think that would be better. And of course, right now, student services is vacant, but that's not the case most of the time. This is a unique moment, and I don't think that that fact really means anything in relation to this bill. And part of the reason that student services was selected is because student services, the director of student services sits on SI. And so I think they can continue to have that relationship with the committee, but it's important to have it underneath this cabinet member. So I appreciate the objections given to this amendment, but I don't think they merit what I see as a poor structure for these bylaws. So I really encourage everyone to vote in favor of this amendment. I think it provides a better structure to this program that I think will be fantastic service for students, sets it on a solid footing so that it can continue to grow and improve and be something that students use. So I yield. Second.
Called a question. There was a second. Is there any objection? Then seeing none, we will vote now on the amendment. So we will do a placard vote. Please put your placard up for yes, you would like to change the position to the cabinet member. And up for no. Up for abstentions? Okay. Because Rinchi voted aye, right? Correct. Okay, so with a vote of 13-9, the amendment passes. We'll move into the general discussion period, back into the general discussion period on the bill. Please, Speaker Ludwig, it's still your speaking privilege.
Yeah, that was the only amendment I had, so I think that this is a great program, and I think these bylaws are necessary, so I encourage you all to vote yes, and I will call the question.
There was a call to question. There was a second. Is there any objection to voting now? And seeing none, Senator Zastrow with a closing statement.
Full bill. I yield.
Senator Zastrow moves the bill. We will move into a roll call vote. Please vote yes, no, or abstain. Adegarla. Advait. Anderson. Bender. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Hayes. Hurley. Klaptauskas. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchi. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Zastrow. Young. Then with a vote of 22 to 0, this bylaw change passes. We'll move on to 2020-3-080Y, adding the Director of Affordability to the bylaws with Speaker Ludwig.
Right, so this year, President Fritz and Vice President Schrader.
I'm sorry. I messed up the agenda. We're not going to that one next. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Point of order. Your point's well taken, Senator. So we'll go to 2020-3-095 SO, Open Records Act with Senator Hurley. Nope, you can just go straight into your opening comments.
I think Director of IT should put that in. Yeah, if there's any questions, comments, concerns, please say them now.
Okay. So then we'll move into the general discussion period for the bill. Senator Stevens.
Yeah, so I would encourage you all to vote yes for this. It really just increases the transparency in student government, and a lot of the people I talk to from the College of Design do like this idea, so I would say that it would help your constituents out if you did vote on this. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, then we will go to Senator Advait.
Hey everyone, so as much as I do like the intent of the bill and making student government more transparent, this bill really doesn't do that. My three main concerns, I'm going to go over them right now. First of all, this bill is essentially an overreach of authority. It's unconstitutional almost beyond certainty. Senate, being a legislative body, cannot order a member of the executive to do something through a Senate order. That's just not how student government works. Secondly, these are things that I believe the Director of IT is already required to do. So this could have been a resolution that would have made sense, but being a Senate order, we really can't order the Director of IT to do something, especially something that they're already required to do. Thirdly, I do have concerns about the quality of the language, what it really adds, and largely speaking, the lack of concrete actionable items, especially in addition to what's already there. If you have questions, please do point those to me, but that's all for now. I'll yield.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. President, before we proceed with debate, we have Rules Committee amendments. I'd like to move them.
Okay. Senator Mass has moved the Rules Committee amendments. We'll move into consideration on those amendments. Senator Mass.
They're just formatting things, but I'd like to get it done.
Been a call to question. Second, any objection? Seeing none, there's been a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the amendments by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendments have been approved. We'll go back into the debate period on the bill. Senator Anderson.
Senator Hurley, can you explain just like this little table here on the bottom and like what would go where? I don't really, maybe I'm the only one who sees it. Oh no, it's up there.
That's a formatting error.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
ignore
okay.
it.
Never mind.
All right. Senator Hurley, do you take it as a friendly amendment to fix that formatting? Great. Is there any objection?
Okay, I yield.
Senator Zastro.
I really like the intention of this bill. I don't care as much about whether or not it violates our Constitution. I'm more concerned with this is our last meeting. We're having an inauguration for a new cabinet next Tuesday. I don't think that this is particularly relevant right now. I think that we should probably vet the incoming Director of IT next year more to make sure that they are doing their duties as prescribed by the bylaws. But as of this point, I think it's too late for this to happen. I'm with you that transparency matters a lot, and the first duty of the director of IT next year hopefully would be adding all the bills that we passed and failed this year onto the website. But as of right now, I don't think that it's particularly relevant. I yield.
Senator Lona.
So did you speak with the director of IT as to like reasons why he wasn't updating the bills weekly? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my constituents as well also weren't able to see the bills, and it never dawned on me to like bring this to attention. So I'm glad you are bringing it to attention. I would like to make an amendment instead of an order, a resolution. So yeah, I motion to change an order to a resolution. Can I do that? Oh, I can't? Okay, yeah, I think just because of the wording in order, if it is constitutional, I wouldn't want to delve into that. I just think it's very important that you brought this to light, and I think that the next year's director of IT we should all be wary of if the bills are being posted. So, yeah, I yield.
Senator Hurley, as the bill's sponsor, you don't get speaking privileges, but you will get a closing comment. Okay, do you withdraw your motion, Senator Vate? Okay, so we'll go to Senator Mass.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of concerns with this bill. Senator Hurley, I appreciate the intent, because obviously I don't think a single person in this room disagrees with the idea that these things should be on the website. For whatever reason, they're not. And so the constitutionality is obviously a problem. Ignoring that, telling the director of IT to do things that he's already required to do by our bylaws, because we checked, and these are requirements in our bylaws that he's supposed to do. So this bill really isn't going to change that. In the last meeting of the Senate, I don't think is much good for us and won't actually get us a practical outcome that we want to achieve. And I don't particularly think that it's worth the Senate spending any more time debating this if it's not going to do what we want it to do. So I'm going to move to postpone indefinitely.
There's been a motion to postpone indefinitely. Are there any objections to that motion? Okay, then we will vote on whether to postpone indefinitely, which would permanently kill the bill. There's been a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to postponing the bill indefinitely by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the bill has been postponed. Move on to 2020-3-080Y, adding the Director of Affordability to the bylaws with Speaker Ludwig.
Right. So President Fritz and Vice President Schrader, at the beginning of their term, created the position of the Director of Affordability. I think just observing our director over the year, a lot of good work has been done through this position. And so I spoke with President Fritz and asked if she would like to have it in the bylaws as something so that future administrations maintain this area of focus. She said she would. So I wrote this bill. I think the position's valuable. I think it's added a good deal to student government. Yeah, so I encourage discussion or questions if there are any. Other than that, I think it's a good bill, so we should pass it. I'll yield.
Senator Zastro.
We talked in Rules Committee about part of this being that they're required to sit on the University Open and Affordable Education Committee. Did you look into that anymore and see if that would be viable?
Right. So I wasn't able to, I talked to the Chief of Staff Rowling, and we weren't certain that we could get another seat, but maybe President Fritz might have an answer on whether or not that's something that's possible. Or Director of Affordability Campbell.
Do you have an opinion on that?
Are you asking if we can add more seats to the Open and Affordable Education Committee from a student perspective?
I was hoping to make it part of the Director of Student Affordability's duties as prescribed in the bylaws that they sat on that committee.
I think that's fantastic. And I would say that that's a great addition to that role and within the bylaws.
Cool. So I'll move that amendment. I actually have it copied and pasted from Rules Committee on Monday. Left that on a sticky note for 2 days. Where's the bill? So I will move the following amendment. Enacted that student government bylaw 6.4.13.3 be added to read as follows: sit on the University Open and Affordable Education Committee.
Senator Zastro, you have suggesting access to the bill. Can you just put it on there for me?
I did.
Can you highlight it?
Can everybody else see that on the bill?
I think Senator Massey, you have a copy of the bill up on the screen, not the one that's in the drive.
Great, there we go.
Here we are. Okay, so it's the second enacted clause from the bottom. The amendment has been proposed. Was there a second? There was. Is there any objection to consideration? Seeing none, Senator Zastro on the amendment.
I think it'd be cool. I yield.
So there's been a call to question on the amendment. There was a second. Is there any objection? Then we'll go to a placard vote. Call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the amendment by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment has been adopted. Senator Zastro, back to you.
I think that this is a really cool thing. I yield.
All right, there was a call to question and there was a second. Is there any objection to voting now on the bill? Seeing none, Speaker Ludwig, closing statement.
Yeah, I think this is a great addition to the cabinet, so please vote yes. Yield.
We'll go to a roll call vote. Please vote yes, no, or abstain. Atagarla. Advait. Anderson. Bender. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Hayes. Hurley. Klaptauskas. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastro. With a vote of 21 to 0 to 1, this bylaw bill passes. We're going to move on to 2020-3-081Y, removing the Excellence Fund with Speaker Ludwig.
Great. So I talked about this last week, and this was recommended favorably by Rules Committee. The Excellence Fund account is something that's existed for, I think, about 4 or 5 years now in student government. Basically, the idea of the account is that if there's some project, event, or item or something that student government could buy that meets a very high standard of like an impact on Iowa State, that basically we can give this money to the organization with little to no rules on how they spend it and what they can spend it on, as compared to our usual funding process where PNC typically has a number of limitations on what student organizations can use the money for. This account has been not utilized most of the time. I think the bill passed, if I went back and checked the minutes, the bill passed in about 4 minutes, and it has consumed countless hours of debate in Senate. We have not used the account this year. As we head into years of student population decline, I would rather have this money in special projects or some other account where the money is accessible and usable for students rather than locked away in this super special account that would be, I think there's these unicorn events out there somewhere that, maybe would qualify for this account, but they haven't been coming through that much. And so I think I'd rather have this in a more general fund that we spend more often. I don't think we can afford to lock away this kind of money like we used to. So with that, I will yield for discussion.
Point of information, how much money is in the fund?
That's not a point of information, but you can use your speaking privilege to ask Finance Director Class if you'd like. Senator Stenzel.
Finance Director Class, how much money is in the fund and how much is allocated each year?
If I remember the bylaws off the top of my head, it is 10% of special projects as of August 1st. Currently, there is 15,000 in there. On August 1st, we had $550,000 in special projects. I did not put the entire amount because I was going to have enough to replenish it later if we needed to get to that 55,000. But I was anticipating not using it, to be honest with you, because it's not used that often. So there is $15,000 in there right now. It was supposed to be 55,000, but I made that choice.
Thank you for that point. It was very informational. I yield.
For the information of the body, points of information are like, it's too hot in here, or I can't hear, and that sort of thing. Senator Advait.
Speaker Ludwig, unless I'm completely wrong, for the benefit of the body, could you please confirm that all this money is going directly into special projects?
Yes, so this account would just drain into special projects. That's what happens at the end of the year, so that should be the effect of this bylaw. And Finance Director Class can also clarify
Oh, yeah,
and expound
Director Class.
upon that point.
Yeah, if we close an account, it wouldn't be the worst idea to put an enacted clause in there because we did close the legislative ambassador's account to make it just legislative relations. Or, yeah, that's the account we did. And that went into the legislative relations account instead of special projects. So if you wanted to add an enacted clause, just so I can tell COA where to put the money.
Sure, and would that just say, be it enacted that all the surplus funds from this account be drained into the special projects account?
I am not a senator, I can't do amendments, but I would say that you could say that the remaining funds in this account be transferred to the special projects account.
All right, I would like to make that, oh, fantastic. Yeah, I'd like to make that amendment then.
Okay, the amendment has been proposed, and it is reflected on the screen, that all current funds in the Excellence Fund account be transferred to the special projects account, and be it further. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Is there any objection or consideration? Then Senator Advait on the amendment. Senator Advait calls the question. Second. Any objection? Go into a placard vote. Call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the amendment by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment has been approved. Senator Advait, back on your speaking privilege. There's been a call to question on the bill, and there was a second. Is there any objection to voting now on the bill? Seeing none, we'll do a closing statement from Speaker Ludwig.
Yep, so I think this is a good change to our account structure, so please vote yes. Thank you.
All right, we'll go into a roll call vote. Please vote yes, no, or abstain. Atagarla, Advait, Anderson, Bender, Emery, Fahim, Goff, Hayes, Hurley, Klaptauskas, Lona, Ludwig, Mass, Pfeiffer, Rinchi, Schulte, Springer, Stenzel, Stevens, Weathers, Young, Zastro. With a vote of 22 to 0, this bylaw change passes. So before we move on, I'll ask unanimous consent from the Senate to let Vice President-elect Decker chair the next two bills of the meeting so she can have some practice. So.
Moving on to 2020-3-082Y, adding the Director of Governmental Relations to Civic Engagement, with Speaker Ludwig with opening comments.
Okay, sorry, just clearing some stuff up. Right, so this was something that Director of Governmental Relations Cassie Bond requested of me, was that the position on the Civic Engagement Committee that currently is set aside for a, quote, member of the governmental relations team be changed to the Director of Governmental Relations because Director Bond felt that she would have liked to have a closer relation with Civic Engagement and feels that in the future that those two, the position of Director of Governmental Relations can work more closely with the committee and maybe find some ways to find some unique impacts. I think this is a pretty simple change. I know that Civic Engagement Chair Schulte expressed support for that, and I appreciate that. So I think that there are some committee amendments, and I will move those now.
So Speaker Ludwig approved the committee amendments. So you say Speaker Ludwig proposed the committee amendments. We'll go into debate on those.
Speaker Ludwig has proposed the committee amendments. We'll go into debate on those. with Speaker Ludwig.
Yep. So what this does is also kind of fix something else that has been kind of just sitting in the executive section of the bylaws, which is that we have the director of ISU ambassadors and then ISU ambassadors, which is two things that we never talk about because director of ISU ambassadors was the position that used to exist, which is the director of legislative ambassadors, and ISU ambassadors is our legislative ambassadors program. We haven't used ISU ambassadors name for a number of years, I don't think. So we figured while we were changing this up that we would clarify that the director of ISU ambassadors is now the director of governmental affairs, and that the legislative ambassadors references or ISU ambassador references are replaced with legislative ambassadors. So this is just a clarification that we figured we would catch while we were doing this bill. So. Yep. If you go into the drive in internal matters, it's in there. I don't know why, but for the last 2 or 3 agendas I've made, the agenda is really fickle on whether or not I get to link the bill that's in the drive. So I've been trying to figure it out. I threw a bill in there. It's titled, I think, I think it's just a copy of the bill. So that one has the appropriate amendments on it. I will try and fix it in post for reference if anyone wants to go back and look later, but it was something that I could not get the document to work with me on. Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there a second? There's been a second to move into pass for an objection.
Yeah, so is there an objection?
Is there an objection to that? Seeing none, we're going into a placard vote. Vote yes, no, or abstain. We'll begin. Unanimous consent has been called for. Any objection? Passed with UC. Now we're back on the main bill.
Oh.
Back to Ludwig.
Yeah, so broadly, I think that this bill is good, so I'll yield for discussion, and so Weathers can call the question unless there's more discussion. Yield.
So there's a call to question, so do the same thing you just did.
There's been a call to question in a second. Is there any objection to voting now? Passed.
No, so then you go to Ludwig for a closing statement.
Now we're going to Ludwig for a closing statement.
Yep, so I think this is a good change, cleans up a lot of things in our bylaws, so I encourage you all to vote yes. I'll yield.
So now you'll go into a roll call vote.
Now we're going into a roll call vote. Either vote yes, no, or abstain. Atagarla. Advait. Anderson. Bender. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Hayes. Hurley. Klapatoskis. Lewis. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Reinci. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Oh, Weathers. Young. Zastro. How many total? There's 22, right?
21 to 0. They call Stevens again.
Stevens.
Okay, so he's not in the room, so he's abstained. So we have a vote of 21
1 to 0. With a vote of 21 to 0 to 1, the bill passes. We'll now move on to 2020-3-083Y, Chapter 4, Rewrite Part 2, with Speaker Ludwig again with opening comments.
Hello again. Right, so this bill is now mistitled because we have successfully deleted 2 whole chapters of our bylaws in the last meeting. So I am going to, I don't think I can make any major amendments outside of committee amendments right now. So if someone could motion to, when we get to discussion, make 2 motions. First, to change the title of the bill to the Chapter 4 Rewrite Part 2, and then if you just want to throw 2 in there somewhere, because this really is the amendment to the Chapter 4 bill, the follow-up to that, and then change all the first numbers referenced in the bylaws to a 2. That would help make sure that we are referencing bylaws that exist. But more broadly, These changes are a series of recommendations that were found by the Rules Committee as we went through our yearly bylaw review and we were looking over Chapter 4. There are a lot of clarifications, things we threw out that were unnecessary. I think this cleans up Chapter 4 a lot. I think it improves the way that the bills are seen by committees, the way that motions are referenced in the bylaws, and the codification system that we have. This is a lot of little kind of nitpicky things that the committee found that we thought either weren't necessary, could be improved. I think maybe the only 2 additions in the bill is one addition for a joint resolution, which is basically a bill that Senate could pass and then the president could sign or veto. That way, there are situations where maybe student government could express its opinion as a whole rather than just a Senate resolution or a statement from the president. Senate or student government can say something in unison. And then the other thing we added was in updates from the judicial branch section. And actually, I believe there were committee amendments on that, and I will move those.
Speaker Ludwig has proposed the committee amendments. We're moving into debate with those with Speaker Ludwig.
Right. I apologize. They're going to be reflected on the screen, and if you go into the drive, there's a copy of 2020-3- it says 0xxy. This is okay. I will withdraw can I withdraw the committee amendments? I'm going to withdraw them and try and figure that out. So I will yield for discussion and then see if I can get the agenda to cooperate with me for once. So I will yield.
Now moving on to discussion on the bill. Senator Debate.
Yes, just about the updates from the judicial branch. That is something I've been talking to Election Commission about, and this was specifically put into the bill as a way to address concerns they had about not being able to connect with Senate as well enough, sort of explain to Senate what they're up to. And just to make it clear, this isn't compulsory. It's at the discretion of the Chief Justice. So if they feel like they have something to say, they can come in. The Chief Justice distributes that time as they see fit. And if they don't have something to say, they can simply not come in. And this isn't an obligation for them to be here. Just wanted to make that clear. I've spoken to the Election Commission, Chief Justice Heasley. I don't know if they're in attendance. They're not, but they're all in favor of that section of the bill. And the rest of the bill is pretty cool, as Rules Committee has pointed out. Now, I would like to move the amendment to renumber the title to say the Chapter 2 rewrite, and as well as renumber all the bylaw numbers to reflect 2 instead of 4 at the beginning.
There's been an amendment to change 4 to 2 in a second. Is there any objection? We'll go into debate on call to question. Is there any objection? Is there a second? Is there any objection on that?
You see.
Call for unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection? All right. Passed unanimously.
All right, I yield.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Now we'll.
Closing announcement? Okay.
Well, I think
you need your amendments, right? The Rules Committee amendments.
Oh.
No one else is in pocket, so we're just waiting for you guys to figure that out. Okay. So.
I'll move the Rules Committee amendments.
The Rules Committee have been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? With opening comments with Speaker Ludwig.
Right. So what this does is add in, and I think that this might have been incorrectly accepted, these sections, which are highlighted on the document if you're looking at it, the copy of 2020-3-0XXY. It said, and if it could be, oh, there it is on the screen. So basically, this just clarifies the judicial branch section, comments from the judicial branch, so that we know who is responsible, which is something that we just want to make sure was clear, so that we weren't in a position where maybe, the chair had to I guess, qualify someone as a member of the judicial branch or there was any confusion. So now the Chief Justice will be responsible for designating someone or coming and making the statements themselves. So. Oh, sorry, there was one other committee amendment, which was striking the seating of nominated senators. We figured that would be looped in just fine under SG, which is seating of legislative committees and personnel. So we figured that was pretty close to the same. So that was the only other part of the committee amendments. Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question on the amendments.
The amendments have been moved and seconded. Is there a call for question? Objection. Call for unanimous consent has been called for. Is there an objection? All right. Passed unanimously. Back on the bill. Any further discussion? Question has been called for. Any second? Seconded. Moving into closing comments with Speaker Ludwig.
Yeah, so I think that these are some great improvements to the newly minted Chapter 2. It's a good bunch of changes, so I encourage everyone to vote yes. So thank you.
All right, now we're going to go into voting. Vote yes, no, or abstain. Senator Edgarla. Advait. Anderson. Bender. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Hayes. Hurley. Klapatoskis. Lewis. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchi. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastro. Senator Bender. Emery. With a vote of 20 to 0 to 2, motion or the bill passes. Now moving into special orders, new business 2020-3-098, Senate Resolution Jacob Ludwig JIG proposal with Senator Hayes.
Title.
Object.
Okay, you can read the entire thing.
Okay. Title, Jacob Ludwig JIG proposal. Whereas I am extremely sentimental and would not like this meeting to come to a close, and whereas Speaker Ludwig is expected to find this bill slightly amusing and slightly frustrating, and whereas Speaker Ludwig is leading in hype-up compliments, stating that he is the most attractive person in any room, and whereas Speaker Ludwig dancing would bring joy to the expected millions of people who would watch a recording of said activity, and whereas adding something to the agenda the last week of our term would be in direct opposition to Speaker Ludwig's requests, and whereas the debate of this bill is likely to cause a minimal pleasure to the Senate body that would not have previously existed if it were not to be created, be it further resolved that the Student Government Senate of Iowa State University recommends the following actions. Resolved that the Speaker Ludwig takes off his suit coat following the conclusion of this meeting and waves it around his head while doing a back and forth jig using his legs. Be it further ordered that this resolution be sent to Speaker Jacob Ludwig.
Are there any questions of intent for Senator Hayes? There's been a motion to waive the first reading of the bill, and the motion has been seconded. Any objections? Seeing none? Passes.
So we'll go into general opening comments for Senator Hayes.
Now we're moving into general opening comments with Senator Hayes.
Yes, so just sort of a, last resolution of the year. Thought it might be a little fun to see Jacob do a little dance. Can I propose amendments? Okay, so just seeing as I don't want to set a bad precedent, I would like to change it so that the first whereas clause, I would like to strike the word meeting and replace it with the word term. So that at the end of the term is when I'm proposing that this JIG, I would be happy to see it, not just after any meeting, but after the final meeting. of the year.
The motion or the amendment has been seconded to change meeting to term. Is there any objection? Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection? Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection? Passed unanimously.
Awesome. Well, I saw that this was pretty popular in the group chat. I look forward to bipartisan debate. I think that if there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that we'd like to see Jacob dance.
Senator Zastro.
As a scholar and disciple of the student government constitution, I take issue with ordering an officer of the Senate to do something that is outside of their purview as delineated in the bylaws. I think it would be embarrassing for us to contradict our own bylaws by adding something as an order of an officer of the Senate when it's not in their duties as an officer. Please vote no on this bill. It hurts me to my bitter core. I yield.
Senator Debate.
Senator Mass, I know you have something to say to that, so do you want to say something before I dive in?
Well, thank you, Senator Evade. As a fellow scholar of the Student Government Constitution, this is technically a resolution, so we are not ordering anyone to do anything, which means it is just the opinion of the Senate that Speaker Ludwig should do this. Further, I would like to point out that as an officer of the Senate, we at any times can adopt an order to make any of our officers do anything that is appropriate for them to do as an officer. That being said, if Speaker Ludwig were to refuse an order like that from the entire body, he would have to choose whether or not to resign or fulfill the wishes of the body. But again, this is a resolution, not an order, so it is just recommending that he do it.
Thank you, Senator Mass. And Speaker Ludwig, this question goes out to you. Considering a student resolution is the legitimate expression of the opinion of the student body as per our Constitution, do you or do you not intend to carry out the recommendations of the student body as expressed through this resolution? And if so, how well would you rate your jig dancing skills?
Right. So I guess I would seek to defy the resolution, if only because I don't believe that the student body has any idea what a catastrophe it would be for anyone to witness me try to dance. So if I had to rate my skills, it would be a 1. The extent to which I understand what a jig is the extent to which I watched a 3.5-minute video called The Irish Jig with, can't remember who made it, but it was informative, but not helpful. So, yeah.
Speaker Ludwig, thank you for that exceptionally honest and truthful answer. I yield.
Senator Pfeiffer.
Yeah, I have some serious concerns with this bill. I don't think it goes far enough. This definitely should have been an order, not a resolution, but it's kind of too late for that now. So I don't think there's a way we can more strongly send this resolution, but I'd be very, very happy if this passed, and I think you should all vote yes. It's something everybody at Iowa State needs, and without it, I think, honestly, our terms would have been wasted if we don't see this happen. So with that, I think we should vote yes, and I yield.
Senator Hurley.
You know, I've reached out to my constituents about this, and there's near unanimous support. So if you want to fail the residents of IRHA, I yield.
Okay.
Senator Klafutowskis.
Point of order to the IT department. Would it be too complicated to get like an Irish folk song through the speakers while he does his jig?
No, not right now. After the meeting. After the meeting. At the end? Yeah. I think we can get that. All right.
That'd be a friendly to add that into the bill.
Any objections?
Any objections?
Thank you
Sorry.
for this consideration.
Is there any further discussion? Oh, Speaker Ludwig?
Hi. Okay. So if anyone was in the office earlier, you all know that I was going to make like 20 amendments to this thing. Oh boy. If I would encourage you to vote no. I think of all of you as friends, and I really think that I respect all of you, and I hope you respect me. And I feel like at the end of this, you might not respect me, and so I just would encourage you to vote no. I've been over here looking through Robert's rules because it's my best friend, and I thought maybe there would be a motion in here that could save me. So yeah, I don't think anyone wants to see this. I don't think anyone should see it. The prospect of it being on the student government YouTube page in perpetuity is terrifying. But if this is the price that I have to pay for having been speaker, it's a price I'll pay. So yeah, I'll yield.
Question has been called for, and there's a second. Is there any objection to voting?
Request a roll call vote.
Okay. Roll call vote, vote yes, no, or abstain. Atagarla? Advait? Anderson? Bender? Emery? Fahim? Goff? Hayes? Hurley? Klapatoskis? Lewis? Lona? Ludwig? Mass? Pfeiffer? Ricci? Schulte? Springer? Stenzel? Stevens? Weathers?
Yes.
Young? Zastro?
Now just go back to who moved out. So go to Emery.
Emery? Pfeiffer?
Yes.
Zastro?
Bender.
Bender? Zastro? Was it 20? Was it 20? All of them.
Or hold it 2, because, so we'll do the 28 to 0 to 2.
With a vote of 28 to 0 to 2,
Point of order.
the resolution.
There was a senator left out of the vote, this very crucial vote.
Oh, sorry, Stevens.
Sorry, Senator Stevens.
Okay, so then it's 20 to 0.
With a vote of 20 to 0 to 2, the resolution passes.
So we're going to close the announcements.
Now moving on to closing announcements.
Lona.
Okay, sorry to, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that, but I'm gonna take the mood down so that's serious now. So last week, one of my friends, who is a black female student studying biosystems engineering, so she is also my constituent, was telling me about the harassment that she was facing as a CA. This harassment was indeed racially motivated and got so bad to the point that she felt uncomfortable staying in her own floor and moved to a different floor momentarily. This was back in February. Numerous times, she brought this up to faculty and to ISUPD to no avail. In fact, many of you are probably hearing about this incident for the first time, so it's very evident that faculty would rather not share this incident with the rest of the student body. When I asked if I could bring this up to student government, she said, and I quote, "What would student government do for me?" Student government as it stands remains unapproachable for BIPOC students. When I joined because of Jack's direct link, so Senator Bender, and even though I was intimidated by student government just by nature, I like a challenge and I often create spaces for myself even where I don't see people who look and identify with my salient identities. But that shouldn't be the case for students. We all sit here and agree that racism is bad, But when racism is brought to light on campus and we do not actively condemn racist acts when they happen, are we true leaders? If our response is to protect hateful speech by saying, well, that's their right as an American citizen, instead of using our free speech as a body to condemn hateful speech, what makes you think that we are here for all students? How does that help our image of approachability? Well, it is true that my work is not attached to my ethnic identity and me being a Latina. I cannot sit back and be silent when other students who look like me are directly affected by racist acts. While I do not speak for the entire BIPOC community, we shouldn't wait for BIPOC students to approach the podium during open forum and cry their eyes out for us to act on these issues. We all have room for a lot of learning to do, and I believe in all of you, as well as myself, to do better as student leaders. So with that said, I want to thank all of you for being here. As students, we don't get paid to do this. Every week we dedicate at least 2 to 3 hours, and for all of us on committees, it's even more so. So I thank you all for being here, and I just want to give a shout out to Finance Committee and all of the senators that sat on Finance Committee. So shout out to Director Klass, Senator Piper, Senator Bender, and Treasurer Rulli. But again, I hope that what you can get out of student government is there's a lot of learning to be done, a lot of listening, and in the past few weeks, if you didn't like listening to students, then maybe you shouldn't be here. Maybe this isn't your place. If you're on social media and you directly tweet about large groups and make them uncomfortable, maybe this isn't the place for you. So yeah, just take that with a grain of salt, but I appreciate you all. As a student, I appreciate you, and as a senator, I look up to all of you. And thank you for a great year, and I wish you all nothing but luck within the next, however many years here you have at Iowa State. So thank you so much.
Senator Piper?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all for an amazing year. It's been pretty bumpy, but we made it all the way through, and I think everybody here has done a pretty excellent job. So I just wanted to say thank you, especially to our Vice Speaker, our Speaker, Vice President, our President, Finance Director Klass. You guys have been amazing role models, and I'm really thankful to have you guys around. Again.
Senator Zastro.
I'm pretty sure I've disagreed with every single person in this room on some issue, probably multiple times this year. But despite that, we all put in a lot of really hard work for this organization, for this university that we're all here to improve. I don't think any of us came into student government under the illusion that we'd be able to solve every last problem that Iowa State has completely over the course of 1 year. But we're working towards a better school, a better university, and that's all we can do. So thank you all for putting in that work, to all the hours that we've spent every Wednesday night talking about trivial rules disputes or monumental resolutions. Every second of it has mattered, and I really appreciate not only the things that people have said, but the people in this room. I've had really positive experiences with a lot of you, and I'm a better person because people have disagreed with me, because they pushed back when I was wrong. So thank you for disagreeing. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for representing your constituents and for all the hours you put into this body. It's been a great year, you guys. I yield.
Senator Advait.
So first of all, on a serious note, just to reflect what's been said, let's keep listening and trying to serve students as best as we can. That being said, the safety walk is coming up next Thursday, and I cannot stress how much we really need as many people as possible to attend. It is important to work with the university and ICU police to make sure our shared spaces are safe and well lit. Now, that being said, moving on, a lot of people here that there's a lot of people here who have truly served people, and I really appreciate them, and I really appreciate every single one of you. And it's been a wild year, and all of you have persevered and pulled through, and that's something to be really proud of. I'm sorely going to miss all of you, and please stay in touch if you can. Swing by the office if you're around. Say hello. And on a more personal note, if I've ever made you feel bad, I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely apologize. I know I haven't been as good as I could have been at some times this year. And lastly, in closing, a lot of veteran student government members are leaving, so in that sense, this really is sort of the end of an era. A lot of the people we started serving with will not be here next year, and I guess in that tone, an old tradition way back when I first started was to get a snack, say Dairy Queen, right after Senate. We'd all pile ourselves into cars and go there together and have a fun time after Senate. I don't know if it's still open, but if it is, a couple of us might be going. So yeah, please join us if you'd like as a last sort of farewell to Senate. And yeah, I'm going to miss you all. I'm sorry. I yield. Thank you.
Senator Hurley. Senator Stevens.
Hi, so I would just like to say thank you all for a good year. I know I had to miss the first half of the year, and some of you referred to me as the invisible senator because I wasn't here for like the first semester. But I had a really good time this year. It was a really good experience getting to know you all. And on a more serious note, I am very excited for Jacob Ludwig's jig he's about to do after this, and I also encourage all of you to film it. And yeah, but yeah, it was a good year, and I hope all of you have good luck in the future, and I will be praying for all of you. Thank you.
Senator Hurley.
So, I'd first like to thank Jesus Christ. I'm a very religious guy. I appreciate the big guy. But I wanted to delve a little into a parable, a little story that happened. How many of you have heard of fish oil?
No straw
Okay.
polls.
No, I'm still talking. I still need.
No, I was just trying to be. You can't do straw polls in Senate. You can't ask people to raise their hand.
So it's not a poll, but nod your head. But, anywho's, irregardlessly, I seeked to buy a 40-pack of fish oil pills. I purchased them on Amazon. I was told they're coming soon. There was a slight delay. And as you can see in my hand, this is one of the two 400-pack fish oil consumption packet. I don't know. If anyone needs some fish oil, please come to me after the meeting. Anytime I have too much of this stuff, I don't know what to do with it. I emailed them. I said, you've sent me 800 fish oil tablets. I just needed 40. And they said, you keep them, do whatever you want. I don't know. I'm at an ultimatum, and anyone is welcome to some fish oil. Thank you all for the great semester.
Senator Kloptowskis.
Just a really quick note. Some of us are going to Perkins because they have free pie and I think half-price appetizers. So Perkins is the move if you want to get a snack. So, thank you.
They're competing after Senate plans. All right. So I guess I'll go on my. Oh, sorry, Senator Hayes.
Yeah, just start on the same note as everybody else. And you guys are the best. I'm really happy to have worked with you guys all year. This is definitely just an experience that I'm really glad to have experienced. I think I've grown a lot as a person. I think I've gotten a lot more confident in a lot of different experiences because of this room and everybody in it. And I'm really glad that we were all challenged together throughout the entire year, whether it be with our individual projects, whether it be what we worked on in this room, or whether it was what we were approached with in this room. I think we were all able to face things together, and I'm glad to have worked with you all. I really am satisfied with this year, and I think I've gained so much, and I hope to work with you guys in the future. Thank you.
President Fritz.
Yeah, so regarding Ludwig's bill tonight and his dance he has to do, Ludwig, I really would have defended you, but I didn't have a speaking privilege to speak up, so I...
I regret nothing.
So I totally would have, though. But I just wanted to take this time to quickly thank a few people throughout this year, and that would be Jacob Schrader, Caitlin Rowling, and Matthew Class. So starting off with Vice President Schrader, he has been involved in student government for the past 4 years. And there is not a doubt in my mind that he cares so incredibly deeply about every single student at this university. I mean, gosh, he's a Hufflepuff, for crying out loud. He's a softie. He cares a lot about people.
That's private.
And I mean, he has had an incredible commitment to student government and the student body, whether that is making sure that students have their voting rights by writing an op-ed to the Des Moines Register, having accessible transportation by serving as President Schrader on the SciRide board, or making sure that college education is affordable. He is incredibly principled and dedicated, and Iowa State has definitely been positively impacted by his leadership in the last 4 years. And so, one of my best friends, he believes in Iowa State, he believes in students, and he believed in me. And so I cannot thank him enough for this past year. And so Caitlin Rowling, words that often come out of my mouth are that the world does not deserve Caitlin Rowling, but it sure could use a lot more people like her. She is incredibly steady, constant in her leadership, and she has the biggest get-her-done attitude I have ever experienced in my life. She doesn't do things to be recognized. A lot of her work in student government has been behind the scenes, but she does it because she cares. So many projects in student government have been touched by Caitlin. She is absolutely incredible, phenomenal, and I can't wait to see where she takes her talents in the rest of the world. She's just an incredible person. And Matthew Class is one of the most authentic, honest, and practical people I've ever met. And my goodness, he can bring humor to any situation. So he approaches things with a level head, and his leadership this past year with funding of clubs and all how that has been impacted during this past year has been phenomenal to watch. And I don't have enough good things to say about him. So this has been an amazing year. So I just want to take the time to thank everyone who's a part of it. It's been a fun time, and I'm looking forward to watching from the outside next year and seeing all the cool things that student government does. Thank you.
Well, thank you, President Fritz. Yeah, I've been in student government for a long time. Since the first week of October 2017, I have missed one Senate meeting. I don't really want to figure out how much time that's been, but it's a lot. And through that time, I've gotten to meet probably 1,000 people at Iowa State that I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to meet otherwise. I've gotten to work with some of the smartest people, including yourselves, at this university that have graduated this university or gone on. Some of them didn't graduate, but you know what? We still love them anyway. And if I could go through everyone that's positively impacted me in Senate, it would be a very long list. I mean, Michael Tupper helped me get involved in Senate. Josh Kettlecamp believed in me and told me to take on leadership positions. Cody Woodruff made sure I felt valued. My first minute, I stepped in, do my Rules Committee confirmation hearing as a freshman. Juan Biboloni put me on Senate in the first place and led beyond us both being senators. And, Cody Smith has been a great friend. Cody West encouraged me to run. We dealt with some weird things that year. We had a mini Campanile that was like $40,000. We were trying to buy bells for it. It was like collapsible. It was kind of neat. We didn't end up paying for that. We had We went till 1 in the morning debating if we should fund the New York Times for students. We funded $200,000 for a Fetty Wap concert. Sorry. It was a cool concert. He wore an Iowa State jersey and everything. And then even going on in Senate, and Rachel Oreger and Catherine Paskowitz and Wyatt Shai and Deep and everybody and Kelsey, just everyone that's positively impacted my life. I can't thank them enough. I've grown up as a person so much. Please don't look up. Well, you can't. Well, I think on our Facebook we do have those videos, but they were filmed on Connor McNews and then Ian Steenhook's iPhone on a tripod. So if you were sitting next to the guy with the iPhone, you just couldn't whisper because it would go on a live stream instead of the person talking. So look how far we've come. And yeah, I can't imagine. I just am embarrassed because every year I grow up a little bit more, and that's because of the people around me. So I want to thank you all for being a part of my life, for being a part of this organization, and for people that still have some time left. Just know that there's always things that can be done. There's always students that need to be outreached to, and we can't do it perfectly, but we sure as hell can try our best. So that, Senator Mass.
So I can't claim to have been here as long as Vice President Schrader. I joined about a year after him, and I'm still probably one of the longest serving senators, if that tells you a little bit about the turnover in the Senate. But I do have some stories. So first, I'm kind of surprised that Senator Stenzel didn't want to be recognized for a closing announcement, but he was my predecessor in this position. So my freshman year, IFC had a continual problem of people not running for their Senate seat. And because of that, we didn't have very good representation within student government. Nobody filled out a petition of intent in order to run for the IFC Senate seat. And I saw that, and I thought about running. And at the time, I'm like, well, I have 100 friends in Farmhouse who I can get to write me in. Unfortunately for me, Mr. Matt Stenzel had the same idea. And the day I decided I was going to do it and send an email out to the House, he sends an email out to everybody in Farmhouse saying, I'm running for the IFC Senate seat if you'd be willing to write me in. And of course, I didn't want to split the vote per se, but also I probably wouldn't have won. So I supported Matt for that. And Matt was an amazing senator, and it got me a little closer to seeing what exactly student government was like, knowing somebody who was in it at the time. There's some good stories, too, about Matt passing out during a Senate meeting. You should maybe ask him for that afterwards. But then, that spring, Matt decided that he was going to Ireland to study abroad. And all of a sudden, there was a vacancy, and I decided it was my time to put my hat in the ring. And it's really been amazing. Student government is an organization unlike anything else on this campus. And I think you know that, having sat through a year of these meetings now. Because you really do get a lot of opportunity to do some amazing things. If I'm to leave some advice for you guys, the first one is probably dream big dreams with student government. I know this year it seemed like COVID hampered a lot of the stuff that we wanted to do. But in the past, SUGov has done things like get Jack Trice Stadium named that. When they first built that stadium, it was called Cyclone Stadium. And it was out of push from the student government and the students of this university that we said, no, we want to name it after this courageous man of color. And it took 20 years, but after 20 years of StuGov pushing for it, it finally got renamed. In addition to that, SciRide used to be a paid service that was little used by students. It took a presidential slate to run on the issue of we want free SciRide for students to be able to use, to get it on the ballot. And then in that election, the students turned out and they voted that yes, we want student government to help pay for SciRide and make it available for all students to do. We have such amazing opportunities to really do things. And I just encourage all of you, especially who are coming back, to keep pushing for those things. Rules Committee is still probably my closest group within student government, and it takes a special kind of person to be on Rules Committee. So thank you to all the current Rules Committee members, because You know, no one sits down and says, I want to read 50 pages of bylaws. But the people who are very interested in the bylaws and the Constitution are saying, this is kind of cool how this all works together, and I would love to nitpick. And usually it's also the people who have the shenanigan ideas of, well, what happens, you know, if we overrule the decision of the chair and then we do this and that, and it's a lot of fun. It doesn't always sound like it, but it really is. So I really want to thank Speaker Ludwig, Vice Speaker Mariana, Advait, Dawson, Mason, Sammy, and everyone who I've served with Rules Committee in the past with too. Cody Woodruff, for example, was a great mentor when he was in the Senate. Kelsey, when she was Speaker, was absolutely amazing, and she would be the person who made sure that you felt like you were heard and that you belonged in this place. Vice President Schrader was my first committee chair I served under in the Civic Engagement Committee when I walked in, and the first item of business is, well, guys, I don't think this committee should exist anymore. So that was quite an awakening for freshman Senator Mass. Obviously, things are different now, but I think looking forward, the best part of student government is the people. You know, every single person in this body has an amazing story, and I've gotten the amazing opportunity in my time here to really meet people who I would not have met otherwise, to make connections I wouldn't have otherwise, and make really close friendships. This session, we haven't met past midnight. We used to do that. We're obviously much spaced out and wearing masks this session. In the past, we'd all be crammed in the Campanile room. We'd all move to recess exactly 10 minutes before 10 o'clock, because that's when the C-store downstairs closed, so that we could all run and get snacks. I've been through too many long discussions about the particulars of PNC. I have been on the losing side of many issues, including some bills that I've pushed, including one that I still think is a wonderful idea to allow for UC on finance and bylaw bills, that I ended up being the only person to vote yes on when I pushed it. But the thing about student government, too, is you're going to lose. And you're going to lose pretty often in student government. And I think it really teaches you to be resilient and learn to do new things. You may lose an election, and you may have to look at what does my role look like and look for a new role. I've known so many amazing senators who went on to run for president and then lost and had to look seriously at, do I have a future in student government, and kind of look for new things. You may push a bill that fails. You may be the only person to vote for it. But every time that you lose, it teaches you something. And if, on the other end of all of those experiences and the times that I've lost in Senate, it's definitely made me a stronger and more resilient person. It's taught me a lot about how to actually make connections and build a group of people who supports bills. It's really been an amazing experience and has built me as a person. And you can't get that in anywhere other than student government, you know. StuGov ultimately is not about partisan politics, but StuGov is about politics. And that's really what politics is at its deepest and best level, is really finding an issue, building a coalition of people who support it, working with other people who may disagree with it to sharpen the policy and make it a better one for everybody, you know, and ultimately winning them to your side. It's been an amazing experience. But I would just say to all of you, as we move forward, keep looking at student government. Keep asking fundamental questions about how we can improve this thing. Dream big dreams. Think about good projects that are actually going to affect students and make a difference outside of this room. And I really think that everyone in this room really has a bright future ahead of them, because you've been through an amazing experience that has definitely grown you as a leader and as someone who can make a difference in the world. So thank you to all of that. Thank you to all of you for all of that. I won't miss late night meetings, but I will miss the people. So, Mr. President, I yield.
Speaker Ludwig. At the end of the last session, I did a little book report on everything that we had done. I was going to do that for tonight. Figured it might be boring. So the surface level numbers are that this year we've dealt with 98 Senate orders and 85 bills. And that's millions of dollars spent, ideas expressed, projects finished or actualized. That's all really important stuff. So thank you for all of that work, all of the time spent on all those documents. I know that for those of you who have written bills, it's not always the most fun thing, and it doesn't always feel like what we're supposed to do here, but it matters. And so I thank you, and I thank everyone who's done all that work. Just as a side note, just for some fun stuff real quick. First, I'd like to recognize who we elected as our Senator of the Year. It is Senator Mass. So if we could get a round of applause for Senator Mass. Senator Mass has been a fantastic senator. He's been a close friend of mine here in Senate, so I'm very happy to see him win that and have his name in the Senate office in perpetuity. He has earned this. I think he has spent untold hours in this organization for, what is maybe little recognition outside of it, and no pay. So I really appreciate his service. For the Godzilla versus King Kong poll that I sent out with the Senate packet, you all correctly deduced that Godzilla would win in a fight, and I thank you for that. For everyone who voted for King Kong, you were wrong. But to end on a serious note, I spend a lot of time in the Senate office doing student government things. I think I sink probably about 20 hours into being in that office every week, and I'm not always doing student government stuff. Sometimes I'm just chatting, sometimes I'm procrastinating on homework I should be doing, sometimes on rare occasions I'm actually doing that homework. But I've made a lot of really valuable friends and connections in this organization. And with the amount of time that I sink into it, I can't really make friends outside of it. So a lot of my friends are in this organization. And so I'd like to give just a shout out to this. It's a lot of people. And if I don't mention you, I want you to know that I've really enjoyed working with you. But these are some of the people who have had, I guess, a large impact on me either this year or in the past that are here tonight. Just first to everyone on Rules Committee, that is probably the closest group of people that I spend time with in Senate. Dawson and Zastro are the dynamic duo. They are in the office or they're at the Rules Committee meeting. They're talking about philosophy, or Zastro's getting frustrated with my strict adherence to the Constitution or the bylaws. And Mariana, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, has been up here with also Vice President Schrader having to deal with my side chatter, my bad jokes. He can attest to that, and I apologize, but I would probably do it again. To Sammy, who has been probably one of my closest friends this semester, she puts up with pretty much everything that I do and all the things that I want to talk about in the office, and is only mean to me some of the times for it. Idvait, who I think maybe, it isn't clear, spends more time in the office than I do. He has dedicated a lot of time to this organization as a member of Rules Committee, as SI chair, and usually if people are in the office, it's probably me and Idvait. So I've spent a lot of time talking with Idvait this year and getting to know him, and I've really appreciated those moments. And then obviously Mass, who I think he was probably one of the people that I felt like I could most relate to in student government last year. And this year we've, been plotting bylaw bills and writing them together and getting focused on the leading chapters of the bylaws because, well, we're a little focused on that. But I can talk politics with him. I can talk about student government. I can talk about my personal life. And he's been just a fantastic friend. And I'm going to miss him when he goes. So outside of Rules Committee, though, I'd like to thank Morgan and Jacob for their service this year. I was on their campaign last year, and here at the end of their term, I don't regret us campaigning for them one bit. I know that there's disagreements about maybe what they've done throughout the year, but they have been tirelessly serving the student body and giving it their all. And so I want to thank them for that, and I also want to thank them for being peers and mentors in this organization and friends. I want to thank Schrader for dragging me into this whole thing. I said, he was like, do you want to run for Senate? And I said, no, I want to go for a cabinet position. And he turned to me and he said, do you want to have an opinion on just one thing or everything? And I said, everything. And so here I am 2 years later. So if you've had any problems with anything I've done, it's his fault and you can blame him. But I really appreciate his leadership. He's been someone that I've looked to, clashed with on occasion, but he's been a good friend, a good mentor, and I'm also going to miss him when he's gone. To Finance Director Class, he has been the gossip king in student government. We get in the office and we talk about whatever's going on in student government, whatever we're upset about, or maybe there's just something going on in class's life that's really interesting, and we talk about that. He's also in the office all the time, and he has sunk countless hours into being finance director, and he's worked so hard to make sure that everything that we want to do that involves money happens. And I really appreciate that work, and so thank you for all that. I know that you wanted to be finance director so bad last year, and now at the end of it, you wish you hadn't done it. And thank you so much for dedicating your time to that role. It gets a 3-4 scholarship. I think we should that's not enough, in my opinion. The amount of time that it takes to be finance director, it is probably the most important role in this organization because it's the position that makes 90% of what we do possible. And so, again, I just want to thank him for that. For Eliana Crabb, I don't know if she's here right now, but she's someone that I've gone really close to this year. She texts me at 2 a.m. because she thinks I'm up, and I am. And so we chat, and I've helped her with bills, and she's talked with me about things going on, and she's just become a really close friend, and her passion and drive in student government is something that I've really grown to appreciate. And then Caitlin Rowling has also been a really close friend and someone that I've enjoyed getting to know over the past couple years. Her obsession with D&D far outrivals my own, and one of these days we're going to play a session of D&D together. But lastly, I'd just like to say thank you for allowing me to serve in this position. When I joined student government, my first Senate meeting, I guess I should say, I watched Senate meetings for about a year before I actually was in Senate because that's exactly what kind of a life I had. And I came in here with ideas and things to do, or things that I thought I could do, and I'm not sure that I had the best understanding, but at that first meeting I ran for vice speaker, and I was, thank God, beat by Jacob Schrader. But I came in here and I knew that I wanted to do something in Senate and be in leadership in Senate because I saw what Schrader and Kelsey Culbertson and Cody Woodruff had done, and those were people that kind of invited me into this organization. And so serving as speaker has been something that I knew I probably wanted to do, and I hope that I have helped you as senators, and I've done my best to be of service, and so if I haven't been of as much help to you, I'm sorry, but regardless, thank you for letting me serve, and I really enjoyed being in this, serving as speaker this year. And to all of you, thank you for everything that you've done. You all have done a lot of work for little recognition, no pay, sunk countless hours into this organization. The stuff that we do here matters. Whether people know about it or not, the money that we give to student legal services matter. The fact that we fund SUB matters. The fact that we fund 98 different student organizations matter. It matters when we pass a resolution. It matters when we decide that someone needs to do something. People come to us and expect us to be their voice and to support them and be, place of congregation for the Iowa State community when it comes to deciding what we want to do and how we want to move forward together. So thank you so much for everything that you've done. Keep the faith. And for the jig, I will comply but I will ask that anyone who's interested join me because it'll look very sad if I do it by myself. With that, I should have. But with that, again, thank you all so much. Go Cyclones. Move to adjourn.
Any objections? We're done. That'd be a first.